me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my right?
Hello, wackos. Welcome to this week's episode of Without a Country. I am your host, Corinne Fisher. I am a stand-up comedian. I am a podcaster. I am the former New York City 2025 mayoral candidate, or one of them, not the only one. Obviously, I'm not mayor currently, if you aren't up with the news, but I am here, and every week I cover the news from the perspective of the right and the left, and we find some truth in the middle. If you're just joining us, you are welcome. Welcome to the show, no matter how you vote. You are welcome to this show, as long as you do vote. I'm going to have a problem up here if not voting at all, but you're welcome as long as you are active in society, and I appreciate you being here. This is a show where we talk about how to properly read the news. Seems like a skill that most people should have by adulthood, but many of us don't. And it becomes increasingly harder in this day and age of social media, constant misinformation, artificial intelligence, opinions being stated as facts. And so this is a show about critically thinking, reading comprehension, and not just taking all your news from the same news source or the same perspective, and just like trying to engage in I guess a more diverse dialogue. But yeah, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you very much. If you want to support this show, it is an independently produced show. You can head over to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/withoutacountry. All hail to our amazing dictator, Christopher Fungi, who is our largest monthly donor. But everyone makes this show possible. Thank you to my capitalist pigs and my cuties. Again, patreon.com/withoutacountry to help produce this show. All the money goes back to the show. It's not like sending me on vacation or anything. It all goes back to news subscriptions and paying all the wonderful people like Mike and Crystal who contribute to this show every single week. A couple of housekeeping things at the top. Just if you want to see me live, I just announced a show because I just decided to do it because it kind of was... I'm going to Scotland to support Christina in her Edinburgh run. And if you, are in Scotland, in that area, Edinburgh, Glasgow, obviously about an hour, depending on if you're going to take the train or if you are going to drive, it's 45 minutes to an hour 15 by my estimates on Google Maps, having never been to the country. But obviously, I want Christina's show to take precedence. So make sure to get tickets to her show. Congrats on not killing yourself in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. But I say, why not make it a two city arts kind of weekend? And Friday, the 14th of August, I will be doing stand-up comedy, one show only, one night only in Glasgow. I'm so excited. It's going to be at Blackfriars of Bell Street. The ticket link is already up. A bunch of tickets have already been purchased, which is really, really cool to hear from the producers there. And I'm going to probably have one or two other American comics on, maybe a local Scottish comic, and then I'll do like an hour. I'll do a bunch of new material. I mean, it's all pretty much going to be new to you because I've never performed in Scotland, but stuff that you haven't seen in a special or anything like that. And new material, we'll talk to the crowd. Maybe we'll do a Q&A. Maybe we'll do a little audience interaction. It's going to be a really, really fun night. Again, that is the 14th of August, which is a Friday. It's like literally like the day I'm taking a red eye from New York. So I'm going to get there that day. And That's going to be my first experience in Scotland. Really excited about that. Get those tickets ASAP, because once that show sells out, that's it. That's all we got. There's no, like, again, I made this. I decided to do a show really last minute, and I'm really happy that such a cool venue and great time slot was available for me, having made this decision, I don't know, 5 days ago. I think I made it last, actually 5 days ago. I think it's pretty accurate. But you guys heard about it ASAP. And then, of course, Los Angeles, California on Sunday, October 25th. I'm going to be at the Comedy Store doing my yearly gash. So all the tickets are available either at those, the sites for those venues, or you can just go to the Linktree link in my bio. It's Linktree, whatever the slash is, philanthropy gal. Really easy setup all for you. And I look forward to seeing you there. I'm so excited to go to Scotland. It looks absolutely beautiful and witchy and cool. And I'll pet some more of those Highlands cows that I love, and just a lot of wonderful things. I'm so stoked for that trip. All right, let's move right into the show. We have so much to do today. I spent the afternoon and the morning researching postpartum psychosis as part of one of our main stories. Obviously, I know many of you probably have been following the Lindsay Clancy case, which is such a sad story. And I think opening up a larger conversation about, postpartum mental health and just, the healthcare system and how it relates to women, and especially with this administration that's so obsessed with having women reproduce, but then making all kinds of cuts to funding. And I just wanted to really, I had some initial thoughts, and then I really wanted to just dive deeply into that. So we're going to do a really, really deep dive into that news story. It is a little bit. Oh, here's Alfred's crotch licking. Speaking of healthcare, and I did a little bit more of it's a little bit more pop culture-y, murdery this week. I think every now and then, it's funny to say take a break to talk about like horrific murders, but just to kind of, I don't know, veer off into more like individual stories rather than the downfall of the country at large. Although, as I said, with the conversation regarding postnatal care and mental health care in general, I do think it lends itself to a larger conversation, and really sits in that area of stuff that I love to talk about. And we're be talking about the relationship between Patrick Clancy and Lindsay Clancy, that is her ex-husband. And really interested in talking about that. If you know anyone who has suffered from postpartum psychosis, specifically, not postpartum depression, those are different things. Postpartum psychosis is extremely rare. That's why I'm like just putting it out there. You can either, comment in the chat, or you can email me withoutaCountrypodcast@gmail.com. But it's a very few cases. But there are some famous ones that we'll go through a few. And again, really hard to diagnose. People miss it. It's not like in kind of the foundation of training that most physicians get. But right now, let's start with our enemy of the state. This is also a Cuties Corner story. I found it originally on the Mercy for Animals Instagram that I follow, and then several other outlets did pick it up. I am getting this from Yahoo Finance, oddly enough, but it is it notes that it is a paid press release from Mercy for Animals, right? So it is coming from their privately funded investigation. I do want to keep that in mind. I'm not saying that it's a lie, but I'm not saying it's a lie, but what I will say, as a big animal welfare advocate myself, and it's funny because we just had this conversation recently regarding the ban on, or the proposed ban on carriage horses. And I talked to a lot of other animal welfare advocates in line when I was waiting all day to testify. And, anytime that these animal rights organizations do their own investigations, they are always making sure to unearth the most brutal treatment of animals. So I'm not saying it's not true. I don't think that they're fabricating anything. I don't think that they're creating AI of chickens being abused, but I do think that they're on purpose trying to find the most brutal circumstances, because obviously they do have an agenda. That agenda is, primarily for people to become vegan, but other things as well. Okay, so says baby chicks buried alive at Costco chicken supplier, Mercy for Animals investigation reveals. And this just came out this morning. A legal complaint filed after investigation uncovers horrific cruelty, organic violations, and biosecurity failures tied to Costco's chicken supply chain. So, I mean, I would just probably cover my ears right now if you want to continue buying chicken from Costco. I don't buy raw chicken ever. I haven't cooked chicken like in years. Maybe I've bought it for my boyfriend who's cooked it on the grill, but because I really try not to eat chicken every now and then, though I do still eat chicken, but maybe not after this article. Anyway, Mercy for Animals has filed a legal complaint following an undercover investigation at an organic chicken farm that raises chickens for Costco. The investigator uncovered chickens beaten with sticks and left alive in dead piles. And I saw some video too. It was pretty brutal. As well as baby chicks crushed to death and buried alive while still chirping beneath the compost. The investigation also documented birds collapsing under the weight of bodies bred to grow unnaturally fast, which is that's a common thing that happens in the poultry industry. So that's happening all the time. We've covered that many times before on this show, and uncovered violations of organic certification requirements, falsified documents, and biosecurity failures linked to potential public health risks. I know this is like a little bit health nut conspiracy theory of me, but I kind of never buy organic anything. I know it's supposed to be like no pesticides, whatever. I just literally think it's this label that they put on things to charge you more money. And I kind of like, as this exposes, I don't really feel like you're getting anything that's ultimately a lot better. Like, to me, it's like, if you're so worried about organic, like if you have the money to buy organic, you probably have the money or live in a place where you can just go to a farmer's market and what's more organic than that? And then additionally, you are supporting a local business. So that's what I say. Other than that, lettuce is lettuce. And again, I know people are at home like pesticides. I don't know. There's a certain level of washing your fruits and vegetables that to me borderline into like Maha mom territory, where it's just like, it's from the earth. Relax. We don't need to give it a full fucking spa day. This is the second time in 5 years that Mercy for Animals has exposed horrific cruelty connected to Costco's chicken operations after the company publicly promised reform following a 2021 investigation. This investigation exposes horrific suffering that Costco had the power to prevent, said Arash Yomtobian, president and CEO of Mercy for Animals. After Mercy for Animals uncovered cruelty in Costco's chicken supply chain in 2021, the company publicly promised to reform. Years later, our investigator found baby chicks crushed to death and buried alive while still chirping beneath the compost, while chickens were beaten with sticks and left alive in dead piles. Costco promised reform. Instead, Mercy for Animals found animals still suffering behind the label. What disturbed me most was realizing these birds spent their entire lives suffering inside barns, never able to express their most basic natural behaviors, said Sam, a Mercy for Animals undercover investigator. And I think that's like the number one problem with like factory farming or anything like this, where it's just like, in this industrial kind of farming. It's like these animals' whole entire lives is they are born. It's like kind of like being born into like a cult or something along that lines. I'm trying to compare it to humans and how I think about it, but they're literally like, when their life's purpose is like to be caged and eaten and never enjoy sunlight or playing or all they know is fear and anxiety and close quarters. And I just feel like there's so many things that we have been able to create like synthetic forms of. And I know we have lots of synthetic meats and it's not like super appetizing to say synthetic meats, but it just feels like there's gotta be a better way, right? Even though this Costco supplier farm had the infrastructure for outdoor access, these birds never felt fresh air, sunlight, a breeze, or grass beneath their feet. While investigating the facility, I documented chickens collapsing under the weight of bodies bred to grow unnaturally fast, while others were violently beaten and left alive in dead piles. The level of suffering these animals endured was heartbreaking. The farm, investigated by Mercy for Animals, raises chickens for a dedicated Costco supplier and is estimated to raise 520,000 chickens, producing up to 3.2 million pounds of chicken each year. A meaningful welfare policy from Costco could reduce suffering for more than 250 million chickens every year through proven reforms such as slower growing breeds, improved living conditions, transparency, and independent auditing. Raising animals in these conditions is not only cruel, but violates animal welfare legislation in many regions of the world, which requires adequate access to food, water, and medical care, said Andrew Knight. The birds documented in this investigation showed clear signs of severe suffering, including physical impairments, disease, and conditions that compromise their welfare. And, this is where I'm going to get crazy. And I'm really kind of pretty much off woo-woo in many ways these days. But what I will say is, what I think about a lot is like, there's just no way if we are ingesting animals that have, undergone the suffering that many of these creatures have gone through, that there's not somehow that is like becoming a part of who we are. I fully fucking believe that. I know that's a little crazy, but I really do on like a deep level. And I feel that's like a little bit, is that not like a little bit Native American? Is that not a little bit indigenous? I'm not, Elizabeth Warren, I'm not claiming to be an indigenous person, but I feel like, that's what that's something that I could see indigenous folks believing. Again, email me. I'm not too familiar with any kind of really religious background. Not that it's a religion, but the beliefs of many cultures. Just let me know. I guess I could Google this myself. These are just things like indigenous beliefs regarding eating animals and their souls. Is this something? All right. Indigenous beliefs view animals as conscious persons with spirits, meaning that hunting requires sacred reciprocity, deep gratitude, and strict rules to honor the animal's soul. Many Native traditions view animals as intelligent beings possessing volition, awareness, and a spirit equal in value to humans. Knew my views were indigenous. How many times have I said that on this podcast? The gift of life. Animals are believed to willingly offer themselves to a hunter out of generosity or mutual respect rather than being mere property or objects. So that part you've lost me on. I don't know that they're offering their own bodies when they're running in deep fear. But that actually reminds me of one of the funniest things I've ever overheard in Brooklyn, which was like some guy at a table in a Brooklyn restaurant who was obviously like knew that eating animals was wrong, but was really having an internal conflict about it. And he was like, yeah, just like before I eat meat, I always just like to take a moment and look over my plate and thank the animal for their life. And like, while that is something that like if a Native American person said it, I thought it would be really deep and kind of beautiful and interesting. And when he said it, I was just like, get this guy the fuck out of here. This guy is fucking you without a condom and never calling you back. I just knew. Anyway, back to the article. The solution is clear, Yom Tombian said. Costco must adopt meaningful, enforceable chicken welfare standards with transparency and accountability across its entire supply chain. Animals cannot wait for another empty promises, neither will we. And the thing about this is it's like obviously like Costco, like we're getting things for cheaper, but I don't see how you're saving any money by beating chickens with a stick. I've never heard of that as any type of money saving tactic. We don't need to tenderize the meat before it's dead. So very interesting. Obviously, kind of, it seems like we should just not be buying chicken from Costco in general. Just maybe, let's forego that until they stop treating animals the way they do. Again, hard because there is suffering in all these industries, including ones where you're not, eating meat. If you're a vegetarian but not vegan, you're consuming eggs. Obviously, we've talked about the culling, the male uh, chicks being ground up alive. I hope everyone's eating while they're watching this. Anyway, that is our enemy of the state this week. It is Costco. Also, unless you have like a huge family, I mean, I don't know. Costco is pretty much completely useless to me as someone who lives in Manhattan because we just don't have the room in our apartments for such storage. But unless you have like a really big family, like I'm talking a family of like 5 or more, I don't really see, besides some things that are not going to go bad, like paper towels and toilet paper and things of that nature. It just seems like you have to buy so much for it to be a good deal, but maybe I'm missing something. And again, like, I'm just shopping for me. And there's absolutely no room to store stuff. Great for parties, though. Costco is great for parties. All right, let's move on to our Wacko Mailbag. Again, shout out to our amazing dictator, Christopher Fungi, my capitalist pigs, and my cuties who are funding this show over on Patreon. This Wacko Mailbag is from Wacko Alexandra, and she sent me a story that I had seen in passing, but again, kind of just ended up going along with this like familial murder theme that we came across organically today. Speaking of organic, and this is from People Magazine. People Magazine, honestly, it's funny because People Magazine, when I think People Magazine, I think like absolute garbage nonsense, people getting paid out for wedding pictures I didn't want to see to begin with because I barely know who the people are. But they actually do have a good amount of decent articles, especially when it comes to like murder cases. I think they've even been doing a decent job of covering like Nolan Wells's case that we'll get into a little bit more later with updates. But like, don't turn your nose up at it. Like some kind of unexpected news sources can turn out to be pretty decent news sources. So this says influencer Sara Gilson killed by husband 2 weeks after accusing him of pedophilia on TikTok. This is not an influencer that I was familiar with in advance of her murder. So me finding out she existed is when I also found out that she was dead. She's also known as Sarah Duffy on her social media, apparently. But it said Sara Gilson alleged her soon-to-be ex-husband, Jeremiah Sean Duffy, was a pedophile in a July 11th TikTok. And she did that, the Netflix documentary format TikTok. I watched the TikTok. She sits down at a chair. God, it's kind of haunting. So an influencer was fatally shot by her estranged husband weeks after she claimed that he was a pedophile on social media. Sara Gilson posted a TikTok on July 11th referencing her soon-to-be ex-husband Jeremiah Sean Duffy's behavior. The video was part of the ongoing Netflix documentary trend in which users pretend to sit down for an interview with the streamer for a documentary about subjects ranging from small inside jokes to traumatic revelations. Preparing for when Netflix drops a documentary about my soon-to-be ex-husband, who I just found out is a pedophile. Gilson, 43, wrote on her video above footage of her sitting down. The caption then read, "I wish I was joking. Hashtag plot twist, hashtag Netflix, hashtag documentary." And, obviously I have an extremely dark sense of humor. And I know that sometimes making a joke about something like that traumatic is really the only way that in the early moments, or just in, certain moments that you can actually end up dealing with it. I do, again, I don't want to victim blame, especially because the victim is dead, but I think for me, my initial thought was like, okay, I totally understand. This is shocking for you, jarring. You are an influencer, so you are someone who is really living in public. And I think as someone who kind of, my personality is like anti-influencing, when I am witnessing people share kind of really every moment of their life on Instagram, reality TV style, it does, it's very hard for me to digest. And one of my rules that I set for myself since my dad died is that I don't judge people who are grieving. We talked about that even when Erica Kirk was being Erica Kirk. And that does not at all like speak to what I think about her political views, but it's something that's very hard to do because grief makes people act very, very peculiar. And if you have not gone through deep grief before, the behavior is extremely jarring. And even if you have gone through it, everyone experiences grief in their own way. And what can look like performative grief, I suppose, for many people, and I think, women, we love to really, call them performative grievers a lot, but it's just like, I think sometimes when you're grieving, you're so desperate for a sense of community, for other people who have been through the same pain that you've been through, to reach out. And social media is really good about that. Like for me personally, I wanted to be really quiet about my grief for a long time. Like obviously I wanted to kind of, when my dad had been sick for a while, and I was really quiet about it during the sickness because I just didn't want everyone's like opinions, thoughts, energy on it. But then when he ultimately died, I was kind of like, okay, well, I need to share now what happened so that people know that it was a really bad thing, because unfortunately we do live in a time of over dramatization where people say things are like really bad and it's basically like they stubbed their toe. And in sharing that, I was basically like buying myself some time to grieve privately. It's like, okay, well, I'll give this information out so that people understand like whatever behavior I'm exhibiting, or me not being here, there's really a reason for it. And it's not because I'm lazy. It's not because I'm being like self-indulgent. It's because I need that time. And I just feel like unless you truly say someone close to you died, like you're not buying yourself enough time. And even when you say someone close to you died, I gotta be honest, you're buying yourself at best about 2 weeks. A little more, I think, if it's your child, but for like any, like, parent or even spouse, I'm gonna say like you're buying yourself about 2 weeks, maybe a month if you have really generous friends, before people really just expect you to show up in the same exact way that you did before, which is of course absurd, for them to do it. And I find myself, even, as someone who's experienced grief in different ways, your initial human reaction is like judgment. That's not what I would do. And so it is this constant like training that I put myself through to not judge people in their grief. And even though I had my initial thoughts about this, I really want to extend that for this story as well, because even though she is not like the direct victim of things that he's done, as in like she is not a child, she is still a victim in other ways. This is a person. I can't imagine what your feelings must be like, that you procreated with a pedophile, that your body like was like the pedophile's penis went inside your vagina, for lack of a better word. Like that must be a really fucked up feeling to have. And so, I did have an initial thought of kind of like, all right, well, we're going to just now make this all about us, even though there are like most likely children victims of this guy. I don't know. I have to look into it a little bit more if he actually like acted on his pedophilic urges, or, if, even if he was just like ingesting, child pornographic materials, like there are still victims, even though it's not like, skin to skin victims, I guess. And so that was kind of my thought about that. And then my second thought was, I mean, already knowing she's dead, of course, but like, if this guy is not in prison, like we know how men are, like to say something like this publicly, like, especially about a man, like you are putting your life in imminent danger. And it's hard because I certainly don't want to silence women who, so often are not believed by the authorities. And sometimes social media is kind of ends up being the only voice that people have, especially women. And I think especially like, other, minority groups, sometimes social media really is the best way to convey your thoughts and to rally the community and to get support. But also I was like, after knowing that she had been killed and then seeing this TikTok that she had made after, I was like, oh, there's not that I don't want to say she like egged him on, because again, that's so victim blamey, but it's just like, unfortunately, we live in a society where men oftentimes, when they are feeling embarrassment, and I would like to find a word heavier than that he was shame, embarrassment, all these kind of feelings, they do react violently. And we can do a case study that could last for weeks and weeks about why they react violently in this patriarchal culture. But immediately as I saw that, I was like, oh, of course your life was in danger because of that video. And again, just really, even for me as someone who's spent or been online since I was in middle school, it is still so difficult for me to digest that we live in a time when it's like not crazy to see a picture of someone's dead body in a casket on social media. Like, I know so many people who have gone to a wake where they take a picture of or with the casket. And again, to me, it's so weird. And then I stop for a second and go, okay, maybe this is just like me not catching up with the times. Obviously, I've seen it enough times now that it has to be like somewhat common for young people. And I mean, she's not younger than me. She's 43, but when you're an influencer, I like to think of an influencer like being an addict. You're stuck at the time when you started influencing a little bit. And again, like, you are just sharing every moment of yourself. I even experienced this with, if you follow Simon Sitz, who is Isabel Klee, the famous dog rescue woman in New York City. She has like almost 1 million followers, and she just wrote a New York Times bestseller. And this is such a sad story, but her beloved dog Simon, she had to put him to sleep this past week because he was having, he always had the seizure disorder, and then he was also diagnosed with cancer, and the two were just like, he was having seizures all the time, and his quality of life, even though he was only 7, became really low. And it's even in the final days that she had with Simon, she was constantly like, and I don't know if it was her directly or if she has a team who's making these videos, but like everything was pretty much documented in real time on Instagram. And in part, it was because Simon was not just her dog she had resolved. He was everyone's dog, because he was so, he's a famous dog who had done so much fostering with Muddy Paws Rescue for other dogs. But it was so hard. And again, this was me training myself about grief. It was so hard for me to just keep reminding myself. It's like, I think she wants to like document these memories in real time. She is spending these final hours with Simon, but I think she does need the dog community to stand by her. But again, it's just like me constantly being like, how the fuck are you not just like how are you editing a video when you like, or even handing in footage, to someone else to edit a video when these are the final hours with your dog. But at the end of the day, it's like, this is her life. She can live it however she chooses to. And even though that's not the way that perhaps I would choose to spend my final days with my dog, it's how she chose to spend her days. There's no doubt that she is an extraordinary dog mom. And that's just kind of it. And again, so, just talking about like relationship with grief, I think is so important to keep in mind, not just for this story, but for all the stories, or many of the stories that we're going to go over today, because it's also been a criticism that Nolan Wells' mom is getting. She's been very active on social media, but she has to be, because, had she not been active on social media, this case would have been fucking closed, deemed an accident, an accidental drowning, and we would have never heard about it again. But because she loves her son so much, and because that love is manifesting into her being so loud and advocating for her son, and any other, teenagers like him, both past, present, and future, who may have a local sheriff or whoever try to deem that their death accidental, and maybe it does end up being accidental. We don't know the cause of death, certainly yet, but it's certainly an investigation that her family deserves and her late son deserves. All right. So back to this article. Again, you can watch the video is there in this People article if you want to watch it yourself. Less than 2 weeks later, after she posted the video on Thursday, July 23rd, Gilson and Duffy, 48, were found dead with gunshot wounds in her home in Owasso, Oklahoma. A child who lived at the home made the 911 call, which is like, oh, great. They're going to need therapy literally for the rest of their life and probably going to suffer until the day that they die. Authorities arrived at the scene around 11:15 p.m. The Owasso Police Department confirmed to People. Gilson was shot by Duffy, who then fatally shot himself, authorities said, per the outlet. Gilson and Duffy were identified as the victims by a family member. And again, it's like, dude, if you're gonna kill yourself anyway, just kill yourself. Years before the murder-suicide, Gilson filed 2 protective orders against Duffy in 2021. Per court records viewed by People, they were dismissed because Gilson did not appear at the hearing, the Oklahoman reports. Which is all right. On June 10th, Gilson filed for an emergency protective order against Duffy. And it's like, I would like some more information on why she didn't appear at the hearing, because obviously if you don't appear at the hearing, it's not going to go your way. On June 10th, Gilson filed for an emergency protective order against Duffy. He was immediately ordered out of their home and ordered to stay 100 yards away from Gilson. Per court records viewed by People, on June 23rd, the protective order was extended through August 24th. Gilson alleged in her application for the protective order that Duffy had a gun, threatened suicide, and went on the run, per the Oklahoman. The same day Gilson filed the initial emergency protective order on June 10th, a woman filed a separate protective order on behalf of her minor daughter against Duffy, per court records viewed by People. The protective order was extended on June 23rd through August 24th. The minor was a 15-year-old girl who played on the youth basketball team Duffy coached. He allegedly, and this is just like verifying that, like, he did in fact have real life, child victims. He allegedly kissed and touched the girl and was caught by another coach, her mother claimed, per the Oklahoman. The girl told her mother that Duffy engaged in additional inappropriate behavior, including sending her messages, inviting her to his hotel room during a tournament trip, and offering her money to keep her quiet. And so, that's kind of just like, I thought that was important in an age of social media, because I know I have so many incredible, tough, mouthy, and I mean that positively, of course, it's me, women who listen to my show, or who listen to GWF. And, I love that for you. And again, I would never say like stay silent on something. But I do think that you have to be very smart and strategic about how you use your voice, especially when it comes to social media, because obviously being murdered is like, a very intense reaction someone can have to social media, but there's so many instances I can think of in both the comedy industry and just in like life in general, where someone tries to out a bad man on social media and then ends up them being the one who is harmed. I know people who called out a rapist publicly, who then were sued for tons of money and ended up being silenced more than they ever would, and years-long legal battles. I know people, who are threatened, stalked. You just have to be very careful. Like, it's not, just because you are posting something online and, when you are, locked, I guess, away in your home, there is a barrier between you and the public, or between you and whoever it is you're calling out. Like, you're not going to be, you're going to go outside, or someone's going to find out where you live. They're going to dox you. Like, it is not, it's still, there's still repercussions to voicing things online, because bad people most times don't like being called out, especially publicly, that they are bad people. And they're bad people, so they're not gonna they're not gonna contain themselves, I guess you should say. And so that story just like kind of made me very sad on many levels, but also I think at this point, since the poor woman is dead, can be used as a sort of cautionary tale. I just too often we kind of, go on, I mean, especially Facebook these days, and really use it as like a personal diary. We're going through a divorce, we're airing other people's dirty laundry. People are not going to have great reactions to that. Love is a Battlefield says shielding herself with the law while sniping him from social media. It just says something about her character. I mean, I feel like that's a little judgmental. I mean, the woman's husband is a pedophile who's trying to fuck 15-year-olds on trips. And she's dead now. So,
well, let he without sin cast the I'm kidding.
Oh, I was going to say, I was like, I'm sure, listen, I'm sure this woman wasn't perfect, but I think she was probably a tier above pedophile. All right, now let's get into our main stories. As I said, we're going to do the Jared Leto sex cult. That's been going on for years. I can't believe we're, still, when I woke up and I saw that report this morning from BBC, I was like, we're still talking about this guy. Sometimes you can't, just like, I can't believe how long, it takes to really like lose faith in a man, or an alien, whatever Jared Leto is. I'm not really sure these days. All right. So the Lindsey Clancy trial. So if you guys aren't aware of this trial, in 2023, January of 2023, young mom, 32-year-old Lindsey Clancy, sends her now ex-husband, Patrick, out to get takeout and to get stool softener, actually, from CVS. She is like pretty recently postpartum. I think like, is it like not maybe like 8 months postpartum? And she is, having on and off mental health issues. And she ends up, while he's out getting takeout, strangling her 3 children to death with exercise bands, and then jumping off the roof in an attempt to commit suicide. She also like slashes her wrists and her neck. They find lacerations. Her children are all dead. But unfortunately, I don't know. I don't want to say unfortunately or fortunately. I don't mean that. I just mean like, but she ends up, like strike the unfortunately. I didn't mean to say it in that way, but she ends up living from her suicide. I think that's like my personal bias, because if I was in psychosis and killed my 3 children, I would just hope the suicide I commit on myself worked. But she jumps off like roof or balcony. I've seen some places calling it a roof, some places calling it a balcony. But anyway, the top of her house, and she ends up living. She is paralyzed. She is wheelchair bound, seemingly for life now. She's in the court in a wheelchair. It's now 3 years later. But this is, what happens. That's the kind of start of it. Previously, she had not been diagnosed officially with a postpartum psychosis, but she had certainly been in and out of mental health facilities. She had been on many prescriptions. Her husband was aware that she was struggling. And I wasn't following this story. I don't remember like following it so much when it initially broke in 2023. I was, in kind of not as alert at that time period in my life. But it was interesting because with the trial having started this week, I was reading a lot of social media comments, because I really like to take the temperature on what society thinks based on social media comments. And, usually as a society, we are really tough on moms, like moms who quote unquote fuck up. We are really, really tough on. Alfred, not the time. We're really tough on moms who fuck up. And so I was really, really like blown away when I looked on social media and I saw so many supportive, long, compassionate, and like mental health aware. Alfred, come on, comments about this trial. Like, I actually saw like an overwhelming amount of support, which was weird. And, you know, at a certain point, I'm like, you know, these were like news outlets too. It's not like it was like, you know, women's only Instagrams or something like that would be skewed by my algorithm. You know, there were like plenty of mainstream outlets where, you know, an overwhelming amount of the comments were, you know, positive. And when I say positive, they weren't like, let her out, she shouldn't even have to think about it. But they were really, you know, people who seemingly had gone through really serious postpartum depression themselves. And obviously psychosis is, again, a much rarer, more acute form of, you know, mental illness, depression, anxiety, post, you know, that you experience postpartum. Come here. And so that made me more interested to dive into this story that much deeper, because it was something like that, again, like that I was like not like necessarily really that into, but I guess society showing empathy for a woman who has, you know, done something wrong, whether or not she was in her right head state when she did it, just kind of like knocked my socks off, for lack of a better word. And so I spent the whole day looking into this. So let's first start with the timeline, right? January 2023, Lindsey Clancy murders the 3 children, attempts suicide, doesn't do it. 4 months later, her now ex-husband Patrick is already gone. He moves to Manhattan. Okay. And you know, I can kind of see that, because it's like you've been through something traumatic. You need to get out of that space that you were living in. Obviously, don't expect her. You know, he actually has forgiven her, and is, you know, is trying to get the public to forgive her and all these things, and we'll get into that in a second. But you know, he did divorce her, and you know, nor would I expect him to stay with her. Like, no matter what happens, I think if someone kills your 3 kids, it's going to be pretty hard to make that marriage work. Even when a child experiences a death that is accidental, the statistics show like the divorce rate for couples who experience child loss is extremely high. It's just a really hard thing to navigate. And then add to that one of the couple, you know, did it themselves. Then February 2024, so a touch over a year later, Patrick, and he is a straight man, so he's still gonna act like a straight man, is photographed out in New York City with his new girlfriend. And again, applying the training that I rigorously put myself through, I remind myself that everyone grieves differently. And I know when we're talking about a straight man, it can come off as maybe a joke with me saying it especially. But I spent a couple hours this afternoon really thinking about this and reading through and assessing it. You know, because what happened was I was watching some psychologists, you know, on YouTube speak about this case and speak about postpartum psychosis, just because I wasn't knowledgeable enough in it to, you know, talk to you about it without doing, you know, a heavy amount of research. And then I started watching testimony of Patrick Clancy's testimony from the trial. And he's talking with his hands, you know, Northeast baby. And I see a ring on his ring finger. And I'm going, I know I read that he divorced Lindsay. I was like, is he just wearing the wedding ring out of like support because he doesn't want her to be incarcerated because he truly believes that she was ill? And then I go, oh, no. I go, Corinne, I was like, you've read about men and women enough. I said, this motherfucker is already remarried. I was like, I know he is. So I start Googling furiously. And apparently this information was only revealed, I guess it was like last Thursday in the court as part of it, you know, the trial that he had since remarried. But yeah, this guy, April of this year, got remarried. And at first I was like, what in the actual fuck? Only a straight guy could do that. And then I was thinking about it and I was like, okay, you know, 2023 to 2024, 2024 to 2025, 2025 to 2026. This is like 3.5 years, you know, later, basically. approximately at this time. And I know 3.5 years isn't long when in that time period, your 3 children were murdered and you tried to, and your wife tried to kill herself. Your now ex-wife went through psychosis. Also, you know that you're going to be leading up to a very big trial. But on the flip side, you don't have a wife and you don't have kids anymore. So you actually have a lot of free time that you didn't have previously. And like, I'm not even saying that like to be funny. I know this is not a funny situation, but I kind of really was thinking about it in that way. And then I was like, all right, maybe that's not a crazy amount of time. Cause again, really putting myself through this grief boot camp. While, I do think that it is a pattern in society that because men are not socialized to properly deal with their emotions, they oftentimes acquire after going through grief, they quickly acquire a new woman to basically act as their emotional support human. And I'm not mincing words here. Like that's what I firmly believe. And I think that, if I was going to present a TED talk on that, I would have plenty of historical evidence to back that up. But it's also not something, that I haven't done. And that's like, not at all really in my character. But, after my dad died, I had a boyfriend like when my dad died, but it was he was a long distance boyfriend. He lived in North Carolina, and I was kind of like consistently seeing that he wasn't showing up, and it's annoying because like I started dating him when my dad got sick, and then ended seeing him like promptly after my dad died because he was like did not show up like at all in the way that I needed him to, or like really at all, like outside of texting, which was upsetting because this is someone who, I'm not going to share it right now, but had experienced some pretty horrific a pretty horrific experience happened to him surrounding death, I'll just say for now. And so that's part of the reason that we initially connected was based on that. And so I was really taken aback that he absolutely seemingly had none of the tools to even like half-ass console me. And so I dumped him, and I was like, I'm going to just kind of spend a lot of time alone. And then maybe I guess it was like 2 months after my dad died, someone, like a much younger guy, like made a move on me or hit on me, asked me out, not made a move on me, asked me out on a date very directly. And I know a lot of people probably think during that time it was, perhaps like some kind of like I was in some kind of a psychosis, but I wasn't at all. I wasn't in a psychosis at that time at all. I was actually just exhausted from supporting my dad and my family through the illness. And I was kind of like, fuck it. Treat yourself. That's the kind of the energy I went into it, the relationship with. And it was great for the most part. Like it was really like until things got heavy again and like my grief came up again, it was actually really healing in a lot of ways because it in like getting to know someone new is a good thing to get your mind off like your sadness, and not even as a distraction. You're just like, it's kind of just like, oh, something really bad happened in this part of my life where I just left off. And now I have the ability to add someone new to my life that is not wrapped up in this sadness, in this horror that that everyone in my old life is now a part of. And I can kind of start something new. So again, this is just me. And I'm talking about this a lot. I know this is not like a super personal podcast. It's more of a news podcast. But this episode is going to be a little more personal just because we are talking about grief so much. And I've been doing a lot of work on some projects involving grief that you guys will, see at later dates. But it's really, really been something I've been working on for the past, 5 years where and I've been noticing and taking in and taking notes on and kind of, doing my own independent research study on how we react to other people's behavior when they are grieving, when they have been through something traumatic or horrific. And so as much as I wanted to be like, fuck this guy, I can't believe he fucking is already married. You know, this is a guy in his, I think his late 30s, married a woman of appropriate age, meaning like the same age. And, you know, obviously he just lost all his children. I think he still, you know, wants to have a family and wants to move on. And again, like our timeline for others is never going to be the timeline that we would have for us, and we really have to stop judging other people on their timeline. So as much as it is out of character for me, I think after, you know, thinking about it all day, I actually don't have a problem with the fact that Patrick Clancy is already remarried. And based on some Reddit threads, some people say that he already has a kid. I don't know if that's true. I cannot at all verify that part, but there was language that was used in the trial that says he's remarried and has a family. So that does, you know, that does imply that. And then other people are saying there's something that they saw on Facebook. Again, you really can't trust that. Could be
a stepdad.
Right. He could, I just like based on the photos, like, so he remarried a, like, I think she's like 37 or 38-year-old fertility doctor.
That's prime stepdad territory.
But I gotta be honest, and I know you can't tell if someone's a mother by looking at her, but she does have single, unmarried, childless energy. She just, there's something about looking at her that I would be really surprised if she already had a kid. To me, fertility doctor is giving like, oh, well, she has the security of obviously having, you know, had her eggs frozen for free, but spent all that time in med school and all this time and energy helping other people have children. And now all of a sudden, you know, time is ticking and she's not had a family of her own. That's to me what it's giving. She's just, she looks very not tired in a way that if she had a kid, I don't think she could look. She looks like
Copy.
She just looked fresh. She was smiling big, doing marathons. Like, I don't know. It just didn't seem, I was like, even me at 40, I was like, I don't even think I'm doing any of that without kids. But yeah. Then additionally, he also had time in 2024, again, year after his kids died, to start a nonprofit. Although I will say, when especially parents go through great loss, I think it is pretty common for them to do charity work or start a nonprofit or something pretty soon after, because I think that's kind of like one of the main ways that people who have, undergone this specific type of grief can even find it in their soul to wake up in the morning, right? To help other people who might be experiencing the same or similar things, and to make sure that other families don't experience the grief that they experienced. And again, like I was trying to compare to my own life. I was thinking of all the things that I did right after my dad died. It's like right out, pretty soon after my dad died, I too got in a new relationship, went on tour, directed and shot my first comedy special, and was running a full brick and mortar store. So like there is this time, this part of grief, there's the wallowing, but there's also this part of grief where you're just like basically manically trying to keep yourself busy and trying to create purpose out of the chaos. So he creates this Heard Foundation. And when you go to the landing page, it's heardwithlove.org. We're building a movement to change how parents are cared for, so no parent faces perinatal mental illness in silence and no family is left behind. At Heard, every parent deserves to be listened to, supported, and surrounded by care, which, is obviously, he's doing this for his children. But he's still recognizing the reality of what his ex-wife faced and how, her being failed by the medical industry resulted in all of their children being failed. And it's so heartbreaking because all their cute little pictures are on here. The youngest, he was just a little baby. But it says on January 24th, 2023, Patrick Clancy's world changed forever when his three beloved children, Cora, Dawson, and Callan, were lost amid their mother's struggle with postpartum psychosis. In the earliest days of unimaginable grief, Pat made a promise that their lives would always be remembered and that he would work to ensure no other family endures the same heartbreak. From his grief grew purpose, hope, and a shared resolve to do better. In 2024, the Herd Foundation was founded by Pat and his sisters, Erin Donahue and Laura Sullivan. What began as a family promise became a community-powered movement, one grounded in empathy, action, and love. Herd's mission is both deeply personal and boldly forward-looking to reimagine perinatal mental health care, to build a dedicated treatment center where parents can heal with dignity and support, and to foster a culture of kindness and connection so no one struggles alone. Guided by Cora's nightly prayer, "Thank you for a beautiful day in the neighborhood," and Pat's belief that love always wins, Herd transforms heartbreak into a force for good. Every initiative, partnership, and active care carries forward the light of Cora, Dawson, and Callan, ensuring their memory helps shape a more compassionate future for families everywhere. So, like, that's a really, I don't know, that's a really, I smell bullshit everywhere. And that to me felt like a really genuine statement. And again, like, just, you know, as I'm taking all this information in, I'm just like, I really kind of, I'm feeling for him. I really am feeling for him. You know, there's also like a GoFundMe that was set up for funeral costs and everything to help Patrick move on. I'm like, well, Patrick has a job, right? I guess, you know, obviously he wants to take some time off for his mental health, I hope. Raised over $1 million, whatever, that's fine. Donations have been paused. And it says it's to help Pat pay for medical bills, funeral services, and legal help. I mean, the legal help will be so expensive, even if he has like a good job at Microsoft, that's legal bills will run you dry really quick. And on this, you know, on this GoFundMe, it has a statement from Patrick Clancy from January 28th, 2023. So it's like 4 days after his kids were all murdered. And he says, "Thank you for all your love and support. The warmth I've received from the community is palpable, and your generosity gives me hope that I can focus on some sort of healing. I've seen all your messages and contributions, including some from people I haven't seen in over a decade, and many I've never met. I see and appreciate every one of you." A lot of people have said they can't imagine, and they're right. There's absolutely nothing that can prepare you. The shock and pain is excruciating and relentless. I'm constantly reminded of them, and with the little sleep I get, I dream about them on repeat. Any parent knows it's impossible to understand how much you will love your kids until you have them. The same goes for understanding the devastation of losing them. Cora, Dawson, and Callan were the essence of my life, and I'm completely lost without them. My family was the best thing that ever happened to me. I took so much pride in being Lindsay's husband and a dad to Cora, Dawson, and Callan. I always reminded myself that each day with them was a new gift. Callan usually woke up first and would rest his head on my shoulder for a few minutes as he adjusted to morning. Dawson typically sang or spoke his thoughts out loud for a while before we'd go get him. Cora was a big girl and would simply walk downstairs. I can still vividly picture her coming into the living room each morning with her hair in a mess, smile on her face. We always started our days together reading books, cuddling up on the couch, and playing with magnet tiles. I loved taking them places, whether it was scooting at Chandler Elementary, vacation, skiing out on the boat, or to Duxbury Beach, one of our favorite places on earth. They gave me purpose, and I never took it for granted. There is now a massive void where that purpose once was. Cora had an infectious laugh and was stunningly beautiful. She was the cautious one, but it was really because she was so caring. She used to say she wanted to be a doctor and mama when she grew up, and she would practice by giving Callan checkups. If she was leaving the house to go somewhere, she would pick someone to take care of Caroline and Charlotte, her baby dolls. She had all the doll accessories available, so her sitters were well equipped. Before she turned 2, she was already wrapping them in perfect swaddles. We would tell her, "She's such a good little mama." She loved all babies, both real and pretend. She loved sloths, unicorns, tea parties, going to lunch with Nana and Grandpa, and giving presents to people. Me too, girl. She knew everything about princesses, her favorite being Sophia the First. She truly loved her brothers and us and said it often in her sweet voice. We did a lot of father-daughter activities together, like skiing and visiting San Francisco or just talking. I loved her, my firstborn, so much. Dawson had beautiful, bold brown eyes that beamed with friendship. He was naturally humorous and generous beyond the norm of a typical toddler, always willing to share his toys with others. For all the love he received, he always gave back more. His best quality was pure kindness. He loved trucks, tractors, dinosaurs, Paw Patrol, worker guys, and being outside. He was adventurous and mischievous and enjoyed causing trouble, which he typically found hilarious. He was also remarkably smart. We always said if we didn't save enough for retirement, it'll be okay. We'll just live in Dawson's guest house. He would hug me tighter than most adults, and every night he told me in consistent words at bedtime without fail, "Good night, Dada. I love you." We had a special bond from day one. He was my buddy, my first boy, and truly a gift. Callan was our easygoing child. I always said it was because he was our third child. He had to adapt and did easily. He was born with hardly any fuss and was by far our best sleeper. He was just an incredibly happy and vibrant baby, constantly smiling. Our nickname for him was Happy Callan. He was sitting on his own, and you could tell he was enjoying his growing independence as he would grab any object within reach. Sometimes he joined my Microsoft calls in the background, playing in his jumpy. I would keep my camera on too. Too proud to leave it off. He started saying Dada whenever I walked in the room. The last moment we had together was our routine. I would come up from my office at the end of the day and swing him between my legs while he laughed and smiled. If I was ever having a bad day, Callan always knew how to heal me. Perhaps that's why he held on a little longer, to spare me whatever pain he could. As excruciating as it was, I was fortunate and grateful to feel his warmth until his very last moment. Faith is my only hope of believing he felt mine. And gosh, I didn't see that in the reports, but I'm guessing that means that he was maybe still a bit alive when they found the body. I'm guessing that's what I'm inferring from this. Callan died with enormous courage despite being so little. Maybe it was his way of demonstrating what I need to do to press forward. I'll always try to draw inspiration from him. He'll always be my little hero. And I'm reading this statement, obviously we always, we're not going to say anything bad about bad children. We're always going to say loving things. And I'm not just sharing it just to do that, because a lot of times I don't feel like that really speaks to the nature of like what we discuss on this show. I do feel it to be pertinent in this situation though, just because I think this really like shows what kind of a person Patrick Clancy is. And again, I saw a lot of discussion online about, commentary on the quick in quotes remarriage, and I was like 3.5 years ain't that bad. I've seen people do it much quicker. And then additionally, I think it is it just like his thoughts about Lindsay, like the way he is going to bat for her, his asking the public to forgive her, he seems to be empathetic and understanding, and I don't know. I do think this is like important, because it's like the remarriage. And then also people were really coming down on him for being like, saying like that he wasn't a good enough husband. Like he wasn't getting, Lindsay the help that she needed. And it's like, well, he was out of the house when she killed the kids, not because he was hanging out with his friends. He was running errands for the home, for the family. He was getting food. He was getting stool softener again for his wife. So he was doing tasks for the household. I do think that is important. And she requested that he go get this specific food. Obviously, some people are saying like she purposely planned this to get him out of the house, but whatever. Like when we're talking about him, he was doing things for the house. And additionally, like he went, he was on top of her medical or mental health with her. It seems like, I don't know that we can hold someone who works for Microsoft accountable for a diagnosis that seemingly handfuls of doctors couldn't properly diagnose. Like she was not diagnosed prior to the murderers with postpartum psychosis. She was, so it's like if the doctors, were maybe only thinking of this as postpartum depression, I don't think it's fair that we put it on the husband, that that he was supposed to somehow diagnose this himself. And, even if you're on WebMD and stuff, like, you're probably not going to think that you have like the most extreme, version of something. Again, it's a very, very rare diagnosis to receive. And he stated many times he never saw her doing, like, while he was aware that she had dark thoughts, he never saw her doing anything abusive to the children. And I believe even asked, like, are you okay to be around them? And, I'm thinking of the other, of the flip side. What if he had her institutionalized and taken the kids away from her? Like, the public would also have been angry about that. So, while I'm sure she was still doing more of the parenting, because I've literally never in my life, unless the mother was a drug addict or dead, met a dad in a relationship that was doing more. Like, I do think he was doing a decent, like amount of work and contributing to the household and being a partner and a father. And again, this is me saying that. So, all right, back to this statement. I want to share some thoughts about Lindsay. And this is the part that I think is really important. Although the part about his children is lovely, I think the words about, I think it's pretty easy to say nice stuff about your kids. I think it's a lot harder to say nice things about your ex-wife who murdered your 3 kids. And I think that, it's like, what is character? Character is not what you say when the cameras are on and everything is going your way. Your character is how you act when shit is really not going your way. That's your character, right? So he goes, I want to share some thoughts about Lindsay. She's recently been portrayed largely by people who have never met her and never knew who the real Lindsay was. Our marriage was wonderful and diametrically grew stronger as her condition rapidly worsened. I took as much pride in being her husband as I did in being a father and felt persistently lucky to have her in my life. I still remember the very moment I first laid eyes on her and can recall how overcome I was with the kind of love at first sight you only see in movies. It really didn't take long before I was certain I wanted to marry her. We said I love you to each other multiple times daily as if it were a reflex. We habitually started every morning with a passionate hug, yielding a sigh of relief like we had each received the perfect medicine. If too much time passed without a hug, she'd look at me and ask, "Did you forget?" We mutually understood the reality that people can have bad days, but we stuck to the rule that when one of us got lost, the other was always there to bring them home, always. She loved being a nurse, and she was a labor and delivery nurse, which I think is also very interesting part of the story. But nothing matched her intense love for our kids and dedication to being a mother. And this is something that like so many people have said like in her life, as far as like it was like seems to be very on the books that this was like not only a woman who was a good mother, it was a woman who like was passionate about being a mother, enjoyed being a mother. It was all she ever wanted. Her passion taught me how to be a better father. I want to ask all of you that you find it deep within yourselves to forgive Lindsay as I have. And it's like, if he can forgive Lindsay, like what right do we have not to forgive her is how I think about it. The real Lindsay was generously loving and caring towards everyone, me, our kids, family, friends, and her patients. The very fibers of her soul are loving. All I wish for her now is that she can somehow find peace. Yeah. And she's, obviously been breaking it down a lot during the trial, not having a good time. I promise I'll put all my energy into healing and rediscovering my purpose. I owe that to all of you, Duxbury Fire and Police, our compassionate healthcare workers, our local faith leaders, the Microsoft community, and especially Cora, Dawson, and Callan. I don't know how or when I'll be able to do it, but your love and generosity will help me get started. I know that love always wins. Cora, Dawson, and Callan, you gave me so much in your short time here. I don't know if the pain will ever go away, but I'll do my best to carry on in your honor. Dada loves you so much and will always remember you with love and endless gratitude. So like, and again, I don't think ChatGPT could have written that, but that's like a pretty... That's a pretty impressive statement to make 4 days after your kid, especially the forgiveness and to have, I don't know, just to have processed that much within 4 days. is like kind of an astounding testament to who this guy is. Another quote from Patrick. I think this is from his testimony. This one, I know I was going between like People. I think this one. It's from CBS News. I'm pretty sure. It says, I think I asked her at some point. This is Patrick talking about Lindsay. Do you think you need to be kept away from them, the kids? She said no. It was very confusing because a minute later she was making them lunch or playing with them and getting them ready for bed or whatever it was, Patrick Clancy said. So it was confusing in that she wasn't physically harming them at the time, but she was having these thoughts, right? I never saw Lindsay harm the kids. And we'll get into it more as this segment goes on. But one of the things that is difficult about making a diagnosis of postpartum psychosis, as I was reading, obviously I'm not a doctor, was that these kind of moments where you're fucking fully dissociating, hearing voices and stuff, they can really just come on in a moment. Because obviously like these murders took place like within the course of like an hour. He went to run 2 errands and the CVS is right by their house. And then he went to the, to get takeout. And in that time, he actually when he was at CVS, he had to call Lindsay because they didn't have the stool softener she needed. And he had to run, what the dupe or whatever he found by her. And she didn't answer initially, but then she called him back like a minute later. And they were like, well, how did she sound on the phone? And they're like, well, she sounded quiet, but like maybe like she was like busy with something. So he's like, oh yeah, I assumed she was like giving the kids baths or something. And it's like, okay, well, she was probably busy strangling them to death with elastic workout bands. But whew. And then, looking ahead of what happened. Oh, sorry. Another quote from Patrick is, it says, Patrick previously asked the public to forgive his wife and said in an October 2024 interview with The New Yorker, I wasn't married to a monster. I was married to someone who got sick, which again, deep level of empathy to come to that statement. From People magazine, he claimed that Lindsay was prescribed at least 9 medications in the months before she allegedly strangled their 3 children. I don't even know why we're saying allegedly, because both the defense and the prosecution are saying like, no, she killed them. So the case is not about whether or not Lindsay killed them. She killed them. But she did plead not guilty because they are going with the insanity plea, being like insanity meaning postpartum psychosis. And so the trial is not about whether or not she killed them. The trial is about whether or not she should be held legally liable for killing them. And defense is saying no, prosecution is saying yes. And prosecution furthermore is saying it's like, well, she sent him out to run errands and then killed all 3 of the kids, like, and then, tried to kill herself. Like she had a plan, right? And that is one part of it that for me, it's like, okay, well, even if you're like, that's why I was like reading up on psychosis. Cause it's like, you could almost understand like having a fucking fit of psychosis and killing one kid, maybe, but it was the killing in the same matter, especially because the one is like, old enough to walk down the stairs as the previous statement said, to one by one kill your kids. And it's like, are the other kids seeing this? They're reacting. Obviously you're in like, what's going on? Are they hidden in a closet? Again, I was looking more into the psychosis than the details of the murders, but I think there are a lot of things to think about here. So he claimed that Lindsay was prescribed at least 9 medications in the months before she allegedly strangled their 3 children, and that 8 of those medications were prescribed in a span of just 3 weeks between November 16th, 2022 and December 5th, 2022. I mean, this is like irresponsible doctoring here. The medications prescribed to Lindsay include Prozac, Ambien, Remeron, Klonopin, Seroquel, Valium, Lamictal. Yeah. So that's a lot of shit. That's doing a lot of heavy lifting. That's like, do we know how these work together? It really just seemed like they had no fucking clue what was going on with her. And instead of really sitting with her, really talking it through, really spending time with her, as is the way of the American healthcare system. They were just fucking throwing medications at the wall and seeing if anything stuck. Patrick wrote in his lawsuit, a copy of which was obtained by people, that he believes Lindsay killed their children because she started hearing a compelling and unrecognizable singular male voice that told her this is your last chance, and that she had to take them with her. Which again, this is a sign of postpartum psychosis. It has a lot of elements and can be attached to bipolar disorder, and also has some schizophrenic qualities, although it is not either of those things. And if you don't, I know more about bipolar disorder than I do about schizophrenia, but obviously, like, when it comes to killing, like, bipolar, folks not as known for murdering other people, but certainly the rate of suicide for people diagnosed with bipolar disorder extremely high, much higher than if you aren't diagnosed with bipolar disorder.
Has there ever been a case where a dude gets this?
Well, how can you have postpartum psychosis if you're not postpartum? What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, just as
like from like the way
new dad psychosis,
right? The way like new dads get fat, like sympathy weight,
something like that. Yeah. I'm just like,
I think it is. So it's interesting that you ask that, because so like one of my like more niche thoughts, and here this is from I looked up postpartum psychosis in a medical journal. I truly believe, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but I have this belief that like becoming a mother is a mental illness. And I don't mean it in a derogatory way. I mean it in that, like, I believe it fundamentally alters like your inside, your brain. There's something that, and this is like from reading about it, from witnessing it, there is such a change that I witness in women when they become mothers, and even like as watching moms as they age. Like, I truly, again, no, this is just something I've come to on my own. I just think being a mom is so much more of an undertaking than we as a society understand. I really, really fully believe this. And so let's see. I mean, because, so this is the National Library of Medicine, because I wanted to go to like a real like medical kind of journal look at it. And I mean, the introduction says childbirth is considered a major physical, emotional, and social stressor in a woman's life. Following days to weeks after childbirth, most women experience some mental disturbance like mood swings and mild depression, but a few can also suffer from PTSD. And I think probably in as time progresses, a few will change to many, can also suffer from PTSD, major depression, or even full-blown psychosis. This change in maternal behavior and thought process is due to several psychosocial factors. There are physical and hormonal changes, lack of sleep, and exhaustion, which obviously, like, we know this is, used as torture in war settings. So men certainly understand exhaustion in that sense, because they're using it as a tactic in war. And the beginning of a new role and commitment in caring for a newborn, which is both physically and emotionally challenging. Postpartum psychosis is the severest form of mental illness in that category, categorized by extreme confusion, loss of touch with reality, paranoia, delusions, disorganized thought process, and hallucinations. It affects around 1 to 2 per 1,000 females. So it only says females of childbearing age, and usually happens immediately within days to the first 6 weeks after birth, which is interesting because that's not the correct timeline for Lindsey Clancy. Although rare, it is considered a psychiatric emergency that warrants immediate medical and psychiatric attention and hospitalization if the risk of suicide or filicide exists. And your risk goes up if you have a history of bipolar disorder, because I was reading up on that a little bit, meaning, because I was kind of seeing like, oh, could this mean that Lindsay had bipolar disorder and it was missed? Because I thought that was kind of interesting, since she was like 32, I was like, that feels a little bit old to have missed a bipolar disorder diagnosis. But it was kind of explaining online that many people can kind of, it's almost like you can have like the recipe in your genetics for like the predisposition, I guess is the medical terminology, for having bipolar disorder. But if you don't experience something in your life that triggers it, you could never show signs of having bipolar disorder for your whole life. But for many people, going through the trauma, even though it's like a positive trauma in many ways, but going through the trauma of childbirth and having a child could be a thing that triggers that, and so then links into this postpartum psychosis. Family history of psychosis or bipolar disorder, history of schizoaffective disorder or schizophrenia, or discontinuation of psychiatric medication during pregnancy. I mean, it's really scary when you look into this. And also, like, if you have a history of substance abuse, and a history of any other recent major stressors or traumatic events, that could also be something that pulls into that. Really, really, really wild. But let me see, like, do men ever experience I'll even say psychosis. I just don't think, I think it's like an actual medical thing. It actually says, it says, yes, men can rarely experience paternal postpartum psychosis, though severe perinatal mental health issues are much more widely documented in birth-giving mothers, while about 1 in 10 men experience general paternal postpartum depression or anxiety. Full psychotic episodes tied to the arrival of a newborn are documented only in rare individual case studies for fathers. So it seems like this is more like it would have nothing. It's like it. So yeah, because it's the mood shift, the extreme stress, and can be triggered. Like if your partner is going through it, you have a higher likelihood of kind of, I don't want to say catching it from them, but like you kind of like the whole ship's going down, I'm going down with it. So yeah, you're right.
Look, man, I feel like I hit some kind of really weird thing, specifically with like psychedelics right after my daughter was born. Like I haven't done acid in a couple years now,
Right.
because of this. Like
you did psychedelics after she was born and then you had some kind of realization?
Yes, like pretty much every time I've done psychedelics since my kid was born, I've gone to what my wife refers to as like the dark place, and it's like,
interesting,
dude, like full on, like, I'm trapped in psychosis, kind of like, it's very scary stuff. That's why I was wondering, like, is there any case where this has happened to the dude? Because this has only happened since my daughter was born, and only happened when I'm on like a super susceptible to psychic attacks, let's say.
Right. And then also, like, my additional question would be like, then is this something that, like, if you were to go, be suffering from this and maybe you tried ketamine therapy or something, like, could that make it worse? Could you get stuck in like the thought, wait, like, let's look postpartum psychosis, ketamine therapy, because it's interesting
ketamine therapy has been wonderful for you, boy. Absolutely not. I'm not considering that hallucinogen. That is,
but it has the same, it has the same effects. Okay, so it says ketamine therapy is strictly contraindicated for individuals with postpartum psychosis, meaning it should not be used because it can severely worsen hallucinations, delusions, and loss of contact with reality. That's what I was wondering, because especially just because there is so much like misdiagnosis, and I think like things like ketamine therapy are these things that we and I'm pro it, but they're things that we go towards when the more traditional establishment medical industry fails us. Like I think of the medical industry as the Democratic Party, and ketamine therapy is like a little more DSA, right? Like we got to try something new here, baby. And I think ultimately it's like the key is using both in tandem. But that's interesting because I also, the only kind of drugs I've ever done are psychedelics. I've never done any other kind of drug. But I just kind of innately knew after my dad died, I was like, I can't do psychedelics for a while. I was like, I think this is not going to be a good place for me to go. All right. And so we read the medical journal. And then the other thing is I watched this interview with let me get her official title. Her name is Julia Riddle, but she is a professional. I really liked the interview that I watched with her. And so I pulled up a CBS News article where she's highly quoted, talking specifically about postpartum psychosis. And all right, let's see, here it is. So postpartum psychosis is rare and dangerous. It's estimated to afflict only 1 to 2 per 1,000 women after delivery, the same as the medical journal said. Experts at the Cleveland Clinic describe it as a mental health emergency affecting someone's sense of reality. It can happen to anyone after giving birth, but the chances are higher for people with certain mental health conditions. In a journal article on the subject in 2023, researchers at the Medical University of Lublin in Poland said about half of people with postpartum psychosis have a previous history of psychiatric problems, and the most common risk factor associated with the condition is bipolar affective disorder, which causes extreme mood swings. So what is the difference here? What happens is it can be the waxing and waning. When I say waxing and waning, it means at one moment the woman can look completely like herself. At the next moment, she's very ill, which is kind of like, that's why I think it would be really hard, living with her, to be like, is she okay? Is she not? I'm not sure what's going on. And this is a quote from Dr. Julia Riddle, who I watched the interview with, but who is quoted here, a reproductive psychiatrist and clinical researcher at the University of North Carolina School of Medicine. She said it's very, very hard to diagnose. Though most people with postpartum psychosis don't harm their children, mothers with severe cases may try to do so and also may try to harm themselves. Experts say it's important to seek immediate help if your partner or family member shows signs of postpartum psychosis. Postpartum psychosis usually happens within several days of giving birth, but it can happen up to 6 weeks after, as we said. Often, when women are experiencing this, they are very, very often terrified or suspicious to tell anyone what they're thinking.
Wait,
a woman, yeah.
Just real quick, based on this and the other article, didn't you say that the kids were like 8 months old?
Yeah, and I pointed that out. I said, "Oh, that timeline doesn't work out."
Right. So it's like 6 weeks doesn't really make sense.
How old was? Yeah, I think it's 8 months. Lindsay Clancy's youngest son. So unless I'm fucking up and it's 8 weeks, but he looked like 8 months, not 8 weeks in the picture.
Yeah, maybe that's
8 months.
Where it's like,
yeah,
it
7 to 8 months.
It could have manifested sometimes in those first 6 weeks, and it's just simmering under the surface for the next better part of a year.
Yeah, it definitely, like, she had been in and out and getting help for months prior. And again, I can't confirm this, but I did see some chatter online that she was having issues like even as early as the second child's birth. But again, that's because that's the other like lingering element of this trial. It's like, obviously, if you kill your 3 kids and you want to try and get out of it somehow, the defense has to fucking make up some kind of a defense to try and win this trial. Love is a Battlefield site. I knew somebody who went on loads of meds and it really fucked them up. I mean, yeah, again, like it doesn't always result in killing someone, but even, in reading Lena Dunham's book, which is, in a large part about the failure of the medical industry to women here in America, they certainly, I think they're certainly, in part responsible for getting her addicted to pills, for sure. Yeah, and she didn't kill anyone, and thank God she herself didn't die, but she certainly had to spend some time in fucking rehab for that. So let's see. Yeah. Riddle told CBS News that recognizing and diagnosing postpartum psychosis requires advanced training. And also what she talked about is like, she's like, as I said before, like this isn't something that most people are trained in. Like this is an advanced specialization. So most people, like when they're seeing a patient, this is not even something they're looking for because it's not something they even learned in medical school. Like you're in med school for 7 years. This is how rare postpartum psychosis is, that in 7 years they're not even covering it, And they really want to double down on it's not the same as postpartum depression or baby blues. Postpartum depression is a mood disorder that can also be dangerous, but is much more common. One 2024 study found that US rates reached 19% in 2021. Baby blues is a lot milder and affects about 8 in 10 new moms shortly after delivery. With baby blues, crying, jags, and feelings of sadness aren't enough to interfere with normal life, and moms should still be able to care for themselves and their babies. If sadness lingers for more than 2 weeks, that can be a sign of postpartum depression. Other signs include intense feelings of despair, anxiety, loss of interest, feelings of guilt and worthlessness, low energy, and decreased concentration and appetite. Moms may worry constantly about their babies, be unable to sleep, or stop showering for days. They may even have thoughts of harming themselves. And then it's postpartum psychosis again is the most severe postpartum psychiatric illness. Moms with the condition need inpatient mental health care, which can include involuntary hospitalization. Treatments include medications or electroconvulsive therapy, a procedure done under anesthesia in which small electric currents pass through the brain, intentionally causing a brief seizure. Experts say getting help early increases the odds of a good outcome. So, I mean, we're talking extremely, extremely serious medical issue. But again, we have to first believe that this is in fact what she was suffering from. I do feel like rolling into court in a wheelchair because you tried to kill yourself and then ended up paralyzed is a good way to prove that, though.
But like, that's also a thing where it's like, okay, this is such a rare diagnosis. How can, like, what kind of expert are you going to bring into the trial to be like, hey, this is our theory? And like,
well, someone like Julia Riddle, someone who specializes in reproductive mental health.
Right. But it's like, you're not seeing that person when they're quote unquote undergoing it. So it's like, I don't know. That just feels like it feels like the burden of proof is
Well, and they mentioned that in the articles. They mentioned that the burden of proof for the defense is extremely, extremely high.
Right.
And then, so again, I did a little bit more in additional research on postpartum psychosis. Again, just to reiterate, before these killings, no one had diagnosed her formerly with postpartum psychosis. What seems to be documented is that she had been treated and diagnosed for anxiety, depression, insomnia, suicidal ideation, and intrusive thoughts, treated with a revolving door of providers, and which is always dangerous because it's like who's double checking that they're properly communicating and reading your charts. I think that's always super dangerous. But like, you obviously, like, if you keep going to different providers and not getting the help that you need, then you're going to keep going until someone fucking takes what you're saying to them seriously. And a reported 12 to 13 different medications about over the course of 4 months, which is a lot of medications, especially when you're talking about mental health medications, to be putting in your body over that short of a period of time. 4 months for 12 to 13 medications. Lindsay and her ex-husband, Patrick, they do have a lawsuit against like all these people, as well they should. Not going to fucking bring their kids back, but this is bad. And Lindsay was hospitalized at McLean Hospital, and then later the Center for Women's Behavioral Health, and had been discharged just 19 days before the killing. The lawsuit that her and her ex-husband are filing, it's a malpractice suit that alleges that providers failed to diagnose bipolar disorder with postpartum onset. And so they're just claiming they just failed to diagnose her, not that they mismanaged a diagnosis. They basically just missed it entirely. And let's see. And then Lindsay's account aligns with Patrick's account. In the civil lawsuit, she describes hearing a male voice on the day before the killings, ordering her to strangle the kids and jump from the window, and says that she saw one of her providers the day before that happened. That's the closest thing that we have to a real-time record of psychotic symptoms. Problem being, it's her own account. And The prosecution is arguing, however, that she was functioning normally before January 2023 and that she did not follow her provider's treatment recommendations. Basically, they're disputing that psychosis was present at all. And then on top of that, disputing that it would excuse the killings even if it was. So again, we talked about postpartum psychosis and how you can have this underlying genetic vulnerability, and people can have had subtler like depressive episodes or mood instability previously. And then the other famous cases of postpartum psychosis, just because, to show this is not the only person in the world who has ever claimed this. The most famous one would be the Andrea Yates case, which is like early 2000s, I think. That's like the classic postpartum psychosis case. And this is the one, Andrea Yates is the one who drove them into the water, right? Andrea Yates. Oh boy. Yeah. Oh no, this is the bathtub. Sorry. This isn't the this is drowning in the bathtub. She is the Houston, Texas woman, 2001, confessed to drowning her 5 children in their bathtub. And this one is really wild because she should never have been left alone with her kids, and she wasn't supposed to be. She literally, there was Andrea Yates, there was 1 hour where her husband had left for work, her husband, I think Rusty, and her mom was supposed to come and stay with her. There was 1 hour where she was alone. Both her husband and her mom knew that she wasn't supposed to be alone with the kids, but in that hour that she was alone, she drowned her 5 kids in the bathtub. And also doctors had really begged her and her husband to not have that 5th child because they were like, she's already mentally unstable. This 5th one could break her. And it did. Psychiatrists often use Andrea Yates as the textbook example of postpartum psychosis because her psychosis was extraordinarily well documented. She had had multiple psychiatric hospitalizations before the killings, severe insomnia, delusions, auditory hallucinations, beliefs that Satan possessed her, beliefs that her children would be eternally damned if she didn't act. And the key point is that she believed she was saving them. Her logic was detached from reality, but internally was consistent with psychosis. And then there's also a case about a woman who I hadn't been familiar with before today named Carol Coronado. And Carol Coronado, hers is different. She just rapidly declined after childbirth. And wait, what is Jesus? She killed 3 kids. Why doesn't she have a Wikipedia? Sorry. Oh no. I don't know. Yeah, and she killed.
Dude, that's nuts. Listing out her stats, then going, man, how is she not on Wikipedia? It's like
it is but it is crazy.
That's the way I talk about some UFC fighters who it's like, really? No one loved John Lineker enough to put him up here? That's crazy.
Well, I just feel like it's wicked. Not because she's deserves fame, but I think it's because it's if we forget stories it's obviously there's not that many documented cases of postpartum psychosis, and I think what this trial is really spotlighting is that obviously we need a lot more knowledge and funding when it comes to issues regarding postpartum health. But I think these stories are important that we have more than just one example in Andrea Yates, because they're going to be mildly different. So she killed her 3 daughters, and several psychiatric experts said that she was quote unquote psychotic when she killed them. Experts described for Carol Coronado severe psychosis, disorganized thinking, delusional beliefs, near immediate suicide attempt after killing her 3 daughters. And although her delusions weren't as publicly documented as Yates's, psychiatrists testified that she had, completely lost contact with reality. And then the last part of this is what I was seeing a trend in specifically religious delusions in these breaks. And so I was like, is this, and I know that Patrick Clancy had mentioned religion, and it seemed like, he had like a very, he's like a very, very Catholic. So I was assuming like, okay, well, Lindsay probably pretty Catholic too. It's like, it's not usually common that you have one, spouse who's super religious and the other one's not going to be religious at all. And so I was like, is this something that is caused by religion? Or if not, how is like religion kind of seeping into, mental health? I was kind of like, why are so many mental health breaks have these like religious elements to it? I never really looked into that before. And that's something that, this religious delusion is not something that's unique to postpartum psychosis, but it also is an element of postpartum psychosis. And it says psychiatrists have observed religious delusions in schizophrenia, bipolar mania, postpartum psychosis, temporal lobe epilepsy, certain dementias, and stimulant-induced psychosis. And I was like, okay, why? And it says the prevailing view is that the brain is trying to make sense of profoundly abnormal internal experiences. When reality testing breaks down, people often reach for the biggest explanatory framework available to them. And religion provides ready-made concepts like God, Satan, angels, demons, heaven, hell, salvation, divine missions, chosen people. And these then end up becoming the language of the delusion. It says, imagine your brain suddenly becomes convinced with absolute certainty that something unimaginably important is happening. Your normal ability to evaluate evidence is impaired. Your brain asks, what could possibly explain why this feels so overwhelmingly significant? And for many people, religious ideas are among the most emotionally powerful concepts they've ever encountered, even if they aren't especially observant. And I just thought, this is so interesting. Like what a profound, how profoundly, I guess, religion has infiltrated our psyches, whether or not we are religious. It is truly something when, even when you're losing your mind, for lack of a better phrase, religion is this thing that we can grasp onto, right? Which then, I mean, obviously I could go on and on about how people in deep grief constantly latching on to religion. It makes me believe it even less. I don't know. I go on and off about religion. Again, something we'll talk about at a later date. And then it says like, based on, what time period you're living in, like these delusions could even take different forms. Like if you were in medieval Europe, maybe you're thinking I'm possessed by demons. Today, that delusion in modern times might look like, oh, the CIA implanted a chip in my brain, or I'm in a computer simulation, or I'm communicating with aliens. So all these things, even though they're showing in different ways, it's the same underlying illness. And the content often reflects the person's culture. Psychiatrists call this pathoplasticity. The illness shapes itself using the person's cultural symbols. So interesting. Also aligns with my theory about what happens to us after we die, though, that whatever you believed in life, that's the heaven or hell or whatever that you're going to see. Fully believe that. I'm just like, I just don't believe that so many people are wrong, that full religions are wrong. I think it's kind of like whatever was your truth, that's what you're going to see. So I guess maybe I should just start believing that heaven is filled with all my old pets and everyone I love and all my favorite celebrities, because that's what I want to see when I die. But yeah, so that's and then the last part was, why do children become the focus? Because this postpartum psychosis, the other part of it is that I'm not just being called to kill my kids. I'm being called to kill my kids to protect my children. Like this is in their minds, this is the ultimate act of love, actually, right? And children become this primary focus because it says another hallmark of postpartum psychosis is that the delusions frequently center on the baby or children because they are the most emotionally significant part of the mother's world at that time. Common themes include, my baby is possessed, my baby has already died, God wants me to sacrifice my child, I'm saving my child from eternal suffering, if I die, my child must come with me. And the psychosis doesn't randomly target children. It often distorts the mother's intense attachment and sense of responsibility towards them. So that is my research report for you guys on postpartum psychosis. You know I love to learn something new, especially when there is a feminist element to it. But fuck, so much of that blew my mind today. All right, and this one's going to be much shorter, but our other main, and again, if you guys have anything to add to that, it's withoutaCountrypodcast@gmail.com. But I just really wanted to, because again, I just feel like when it's a story like this, everyone's kind of having the same conversation over and over again. And it's like, all right, like to me, the interesting, and again, I don't want to like, interesting feels like kind of yucky to say, but I think the part that I really wanted to explore was not so much like what happened on the days. You know, I wanted to be like, what is this thing? Why is me, someone who is like pretty well versed in mental health and women's issues, this is the first time I'm hearing about this. I mean, I guess maybe in the Andrea Yates like thing, it could have been something that I've read before, but it's certainly not something that I'm thinking of that's actively like on the tip of my brain. Whether or not I've ever uttered the words postpartum psychosis before, I cannot tell you, but it's certainly not something like if you asked me yesterday, what's postpartum psychosis, I would be like, use context clues to figure it out, but it's just not something we're talking about. And so to learn about it, especially when it seems to be a threat to children's lives, which we love talking about so much, and mothers' lives. Okay. So this, again, this was like kind of the what I woke up to this morning. Jared Leto is, accused of criminal sexual misconduct yet again. And it's like, why the fuck is this guy not locked up? This was the guy who was like basically inviting people to like spend the weekend with him in his sex cult in Croatia. Like, do you guys remember that? Do you remember that, Mike? When he was like, when you could like basically pay X amount of dollars to go hang out with Jared Leto? We've lost him. Okay. This says 4 women accuse Jared Leto of criminal sexual conduct. Warning: contains graphic details of alleged sexual offenses and misconduct, as well as strong language. 4 women have accused Oscar-winning actor and 30 Seconds to Mars frontman Jared Leto of criminal sexual conduct, with the alleged offenses having taken place when they were teenagers. One of the women says she was sexually assaulted in a motel bathroom when she was 17. Another says the Hollywood star threatened her with sexual assault when she was 19. That's fun. And had been unexpectedly left alone with him in a hotel room. A third describes how she had underage sex with the star in California when she was 17, which would be classified as statutory rape. Leto shrugged off a conversation about the age of consent being 18 in the U.S. state, she says. The fourth woman describes being groomed by Leto, saying he abused his celebrity status by making repeated sexually explicit phone calls to her when she was 16. On at least one occasion, she says he suggested that they should have sex. She was subsequently sent an NDA to prevent her from talking about her relationship with Leto, which the BBC has seen. However, she refused to sign. 4 further women say that they received strange and often very sexual phone calls from Leto when they were younger. Another woman says when she was 14, he instructed a security guard to take her backstage at a music festival after having made a lewd comment about her chest during an autograph signing. The girl's mother confronted Leto, but he repeated the comment, "It is alleged." Ugh. In total, 10 women have spoken to the BBC documentary Jared Leto, Hollywood's Dark Secret, with 9 of them sharing their stories publicly for the first time. I haven't watched the documentary. All of the women say that they encountered Leto between 2002 and 2016 when he was in his 30s and 40s. He is now 54. This was 25 years ago. He has gotten away with it, says one of his alleged victims. The BBC has corroborated a number of the women's accounts with friends and family who were told about the encounters with Leto at the time. In some cases, we have also seen pictures and messages that support the women's accounts. 2 men who worked with Leto's band for many years also told the documentary how uncomfortable staff felt about the way Leto would interact with teenage girls, sometimes inviting them backstage to his dressing room or inviting them to the house where he was recording. I think everyone thought the age gap was way too big, one says. Despite repeated attempts to contact Jared Leto before publication, he did not respond to the allegations put to him by the BBC. What is this thing with teen girls and celebrity men? It's real fucking weird. After this story was published, Leto said in a statement released by his representatives to the BBC, quote, "I have never sexually assaulted anyone in my entire life." I mean, we just know that's not true. So you're setting yourself up for failure, my guy. These claims are absolutely and categorically false. And you know, it's like, if we want to look for little signs that someone is lying, anytime someone says categorically, they are lying through their teeth. Leto has been a prominent actor since the 1990s. I would say not anymore. I think it kind of all ended with Dallas Buyers Club, but okay. And
he was just getting praise for his performance in Masters of the Universe as Skeletor, like stole the movie. Everybody loved him.
Oh, actually, that's right. That's just, he's not. I was like, I haven't been thinking about him since Dallas Buyers Club. You are right, though. Wait, did that come out yet?
Yeah, that came out I want to say like beginning of the summer, end of the spring, somewhere around there.
It's so funny because I was like, I feel like since Dallas Buyers Club, the only things that I've heard about Jared or are his weird sex cult and then his shitty band.
Well, I mean, he was in the Snyder DC as the Joker.
Yeah, I think he's just doing stuff that I'm not. Well, I would have seen that. I feel like. I don't know. I'm just like seeing, like, I'm pretty like into pop culture. I just feel like we stopped talking about him, but I guess he kept getting roles.
I mean, Tron.
Didn't see that.
He's like prominent in that.
Maybe what they did was they were like, we're just gonna put him in guy stuff now because the girls are mad at him.
Oh, you think that's it? It's
kind of, because he was like so Jared Leto was like when I was like a teenager, this was like one of my big crushes. Hot. Then obviously kind of doing like the gender bending, because like in Dallas Buyers Club, is he actually trans? Is he what is he? Because it was so long ago. I don't know what we were calling it. Jared Leto, is he transgender in Dallas Buyers Club? I want to 2014. What we're doing? So so he portrayed he was portraying a transgender woman. That's what I thought. I was like, that would never happen anymore. But in Dallas Buyers Club, he did. And like, so of course that stole the hearts of like all the millennial women like me who loved him. But yeah, you know, like all these things. So after Dallas Buyers Club, right, there's like this big gap. That's in 2013. Then we kind of don't see him again in a big film until I guess he's in Blade Runner. This is out of order because 2017. Morbius, I don't even know what that is. 2022, but they all look like kind of man movies after that. Morbius, Blade Runner, Masters of the Universe, Tron, Suicide Squad. These are man movies.
Well, I mean, Suicide Squad had the more broad appeal. Suicide Squad was the direct
because Harley Quinn, sure,
and yeah, Harley Quinn, and also it's like, you know, it was the continuation of like, you know, it was supposed to be the other side of the street from Marvel,
but that was all the way back in 2016 anyway. So that was like still.
That's a decade ago. He did some weird indie stuff like Mr. Nobody. I thought that was like a super weird movie that I don't know. It was all right. House of Gucci he showed up in.
Okay, I didn't see that. I wanted to though.
Morbius is it was a Sony Spider-Man property, but it's still like that's a big superhero thing. Haunted Mansion, that seems like, you know, something. What is that? That's a Disney property.
Disney, yeah.
Tron Ares, and then like I said, Skeletor this year. He did get some praise for that. That was I'm just saying he hasn't been completely off the map for the last decade.
You're right.
Like he's been.
It seems like they just they changed the kind of film. I'm not like I kind of brought it up as a joke, but then as I'm looking at the filmography, I'm like, no, that actually seems like exactly what they did. They were like, gals don't like him anymore, but he's still so ingrained. Like, you know, enough people loved him and wanted to keep him happy that they just put him in man stuff. When was Jared Leto first accused misconduct? Like, because I'm like, it wasn't today. Like, this has been going on for years. So yeah, the earliest public accusation of Jared Leto it traces all the way back to 2005 when a New York Post article reported from unnamed sources that Leto had been aggressively pursuing teenage models at a New York hotel, though it wasn't framed then as a formal misconduct allegation. Obviously, 2005, very different times too. So the way that they were reporting things like that were different. The first named direct public accusation then came in 2012 when LA DJ Ali Teals posted on Facebook that Leto had tried to force himself on her backstage when she was 17, though this didn't gain wide attention until she resurfaced it on Instagram last June, it looks like. And then now this is all coming, to light this week because of this July 2026 BBC documentary, Jared Leto, Hollywood's Dark Secret, in which they got 10 women together to talk about allegations for alleging criminal sexual conduct, including one claim of statutory rape. So again, I just knew, I'm like, there's always anything like this. It's not coming out of nowhere. There's always a paper trail where people were like, yeah, we tried to tell you. But again, the 2005 one makes sense because it was just a different climate to come forward with an allegation of that, of that sort.
Yeah, I mean, that's within 10 years of Jerry Seinfeld publicly dating a high school student.
You're not wrong. And then there's so much discussion of that online these days.
And it's like, I think there was a thing where it's like this rapscallion, right?
Right.
He's like a, early 20s guy. He's all these, young Russian models that are in, better stay away from Jared Leto. He's a bad boy in the town.
Yeah. Oh, and then it goes on because I'm going to too many news sources, but allegations against Leto have lingered for decades. The BBC has counted more than 120 separate allegations made online relating to his behavior towards women, some of them historical. Then it talks about the DJ that I just talked about, which her Instagram post then prompted several other women to come forward with similar claims. 9 women last year also accused Leto of sexual impropriety in an article by U.S. media outlet Air Mail. He denied all of those in allegations. In the BBC documentary, the 4 women who allege criminal behavior, Isabel, Alex, Clara, and Etta, describe in detail what they say happened to them in their encounters with the star. Now, in her 40s, Isabel, which is not her real name, says she only recently stopped blaming herself for the sexual assault that she says took place in 2002 when she was 17. And I know it sounds so weird, in this day and age to with all that we know about these kind of crimes and these kind of predators for women to still be blaming themselves. But I gotta be honest, it happens all the time. Even when I'm at the press conferences for Bill A101 here in New York, I have had women who look to be my mother's age. So we're talking mid to late 60s, come up to me crying, thanking me for advocating for them and saying for years, I just thought this was my fault. And it's and it's just not I'm not shocking in a judgmental way. It's just it's just shocking how ingrained this stuff becomes in your soul and how thick shame is and how fucked up society it is that you're a kid and someone's taking advantage of you and you still somehow because women, our sexuality is either monetized without our consent or somehow weaponized against us when men don't have full control over it. I just had so many thoughts and feelings on this. So that's so upsetting that, I'm glad she finally stopped blaming herself, but that fact that, she's now in her 40s and she's been dealing with this for over 20 years it's a lot to handle. She said, most of my life, I had viewed this event as I was a stupid girl, and so this bad thing happened. Isabel says she agreed to meet Leto at his hotel after she had shown the actor and his friends around the Las Vegas store where she was working. The address she was given turned out to be a dingy, gross motel, but she says she presumed they would be heading out somewhere else. Isabel says she was sitting on the bed waiting for Leto to get ready when he called her into the bathroom so the pair could talk while he showered. I don't think there was many words exchanged, and he opened the shower curtain and started kissing me, she tells the documentary. He then grabbed her hand and used it to masturbate himself. Taken by surprise, The then teenager says she pulled away and told him she wanted to leave. Putting on a towel, Leto went outside and appeared to check who was around, she says, before letting her out of the room. Yuck. It was only later, she says, when she looked up the actor online that she realized he was in his 30s. In the 2010s, 30 Seconds to Mars, which is a shitty band, even though they've won awards, was headlining in major international arenas, and crew working with the band would call local modeling agencies to offer female models free VIP tickets. And again, this is like not unique to this band. There's so many stories. There's stories about this with like fathers sending their daughters up to, Will Smith's hotel room when he's out, like doing stuff like that. Bands pick. There's all this. Even though I know it's like consensual or whatever, even stuff like these days where like I know Usher has a segment in his show where he does some kind of like, male magic mic performance on someone in the audience who like wants to do it. A clip from his concert just went viral this week because there's like this beautiful woman on stage who presumably has gone up on stage consensually, like knowing what's going to happen. Like everyone knows what happens at an Usher concert. Like if you're an Usher fan, you certainly got to know. But she like looks like very uncomfortable when he's doing it and like not into it at all. And I don't know if that's because maybe like in person Usher's energy isn't what you would expect it to be, which I feel like is super common for male celebrities. Like, and by that I mean they have a bit more of a feminine energy than you'd expect, and some straight women aren't going to go for that. But she just looks like she's like not having it, and like good on Usher in that he like backs off and is like, go back to your seat, but bad on Usher in that of course he does it in a way that it's very clear his ego has been bruised. But at least he like realizes her body language is not there and does let her go. But I mean, I just even scenarios like that, I just feel like I don't know that they have a place in 2026.
I have it. Do you want it?
You could play it. It's just like ugh.
Really? This is the first time I've actually
I don't
watched
like
the whole
Usher
thing.
very much.
All right,
I've always had a problem with him since I was a little girl, and I just got to trust my intuition.
All right, fair. Can you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to get zinged for the
right,
audio
yeah.
anyway, so we can just show the video.
Yeah, it's like that's where he gets close.
Yeah. And you can just see in his face, like, he has to make a little joke. His ego is bruised. Whatever. And then he kind of shoos her away with his hand. That dismissiveness I really don't like. But yeah, I mean, again, at least kudos to him that he, stopped. It was a good lesson in when someone's body language is saying no, even if they said yes, like it's a no, cool. And also just like, I don't know, as someone who's like, been having sex for 20 plus years at this point, like nothing worse than being in a situation where like the two people have not agreed that the vibe is there. Like, yeah, like who's even interested? It's so weird to me. In the 2010s, 30 Seconds to Mars was headlining in major international arenas, and crew working again with the band would call local modeling agencies to offer female models free VIP tickets, according to one ex-crew member we are calling Brad. Brad should be called to the stand too. That request was direct from Jared. He says there would be a backstage room for the models. He confirms, describing the task of requesting only females as a little bit uncomfortable. Oh God. I mean, again, just there's always so many people complicit in these things. Ex-model Alex says her agency was invited to the band's concert at London's O2 Arena in 2013. Leto's female assistant then invited her to an after party at Shoreditch House in East London, she says. Alex was 19 at the time, but says to protect herself, she felt the need to pretend to be younger when she met Leto. She says she told him she was 17 and that Leto, then 41, replied, age is just a number. And anyway, we're in Europe. That's a good lyric for a song. Maybe add that in for your next tour. Although her phone battery was dying and she felt drunk, Alex says one of Leto's assistants encouraged her to go to another party at a nearby hotel later. I get into the hotel room. It's really dark. And then I see that it's just him, she tells the documentary. Weren't there supposed to be other people? She says she then asked whether he had a phone charger or any cash so she could get home, but that Leto said no to both. Out of options, Alex says she considered whether she might be able to sleep on the chaise lounge in the room, but when she asked Leto if she could do that, Alex says the star responded by saying if she did, she would wake up with, this is a quote, with a dick in her ass. All right. He repeated this response several times, she says, and it was then that she realized I'm not safe and left the room. You'll wake up with your dick in your ass once. Shame on me. Alex says she later texted a friend to tell her what had happened. He was threatening sexual assault. You should report him, her friend replied. For a long time, Alex says she tried to dismiss what happened, but now she believes the hotel encounter had all been planned out. Yeah, not only planned out by multiple people, Jared Leto and his team. Fuck all y'all. The assistant.
There's a real distinction to make there, just for like from a guy's point of view, where it's like she laughed it off maybe the first time. You know what I mean? It's like you beat this joke into the ground, and it's like, no, this is a complete confession, and like this girl should 1,000% get away from you.
Oh, well, yeah. And then just like, I mean, it's giving like, they're all the kind of, these stories are very similar. Like this reminds me in many ways of Harvey Weinstein stories. Like it's hotel room, it's the dynamic of power, it's like locking the door, it's having to ask for permission to leave a place, like, and there is like, I've been in a hotel room with a famous person, not as famous as Jared Leto, but with a famous person, and like I was old enough to know what I was getting into. There was still quite a large age gap there, but I was in my 20s at least, and there was still and I wasn't there because I liked this part of it, but there was like a palpable like power dynamic. And like, there was like, it's weird to explain, but there is like, he didn't do anything, but he definitely tried to. And I said no, but then he listened. But like, there was like an element, I would say, of like fear there, just because like the person is more powerful than you, not only physically, but also like in their public stature. So it's weird. It's a weird thing. I don't know. The assistant knew what to say to lure me into his hotel room, she tells the BBC. Brad, the former crew member, describes young girls joining Leto on stage for final songs at gigs, and then crew members being instructed to invite them backstage. And he, Leto, would talk to them in his dressing room. I couldn't tell you what happened from there, Brad tells the BBC. Another man who worked... Yeah?
Have you never heard of rock and roll? Like, that is...
Yeah, Mike, I've seen Almost Famous, and I've read I'm With the Band by Pamela DeBar. I'm
sure. But I'm saying, like, in real life, like, I've been at a show with a girl who I was hooking up with who was, like, 20 years old at the time, and she left with the bassist from that band. Like, it's just, that's a thing that happens. It's like, it
is a thing that happens, but it's interesting how it always happens with a girl who's 20 years younger than the guy and is not famous.
All right, fair enough.
Like, again, I'm saying, like, I'm telling my story. In my story, I don't feel like I was a victim in any way, but it's also like, once you get in there, you don't know what it's like until you get in there. And then you get in there and you go, all right, I'm all right now. And I don't feel like in imminent danger, but I'm like, I don't love the feeling that I have right now. And I don't necessarily want to put myself in this situation again. But while you're in the hotel room, you go, and it's not like I'm in there thinking I'm going to get killed, but there is a thing like, is he going to lash out? Is he going to break a wine bottle? Is he going to grab me in a forceful, way? And there was like a way that like, I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah, like, yeah, it's still like, I don't know. Like, I'm not saying like if you have sex with like, someone 20 years younger than you once, like, okay, but it's like, if you're a rock star and you're only having sex with people 20 years younger than you, and you're having your staff go out and look for these people, like, yes, like this is legal, but at a certain point, it's like you're specifically only choosing people who don't have enough life experience to know who you like, what this dynamic is really going to be, and what they're like, and that, because when you're dealing with 20-year-olds, girls especially, it's like, you're still dealing with people who are under the impression that when a man chooses you, it's because like you're special and not just because like you're available. And that's why men don't like to deal with women in their 40s. It's a
Okay.
little bit different.
To be fair, though, like this woman is going to learn that from, you know, some stockbroker on Hinge or the basis from Corn. It's like, who would you rather learn that from?
Right. But what we're saying is we shouldn't be having this dynamic exist in society like at all. Like that's the ultimate. And we're a long way from there. But like this is not ideal. And I think some women probably do share exactly what you just said, you know? But to me, that also seems like an explanation why some people get into sex work. They're like, well, I'm going to be fucking guys I don't like for free, so might as well do it for money, you know?
Right.
And again, nothing against sex work, but it's just like, I don't know that if this is like I don't know if this logic is the healthiest. That's all I'm saying. And again, I don't think that engaging in sex work is inherently unhealthy, but I think that we really got to look into when we're engaging in sex work, if we are, why we're doing it, you know, and if we do truly feel empowered by it. Again, not saying we don't, not trying to be Tina Fey, just a question I'm asking. Another man who was worked with the band, whom we are calling Simon, says at one point there would typically be about 2 girls a day stopping by to see Leto at a house where the band was working. A woman we are calling Clara alleges that she first had sex with Leto when she was 17 and he was aged 34 at his house in California. And it's just like, ew, have you met a 17-year-old girl? Fucking ew. Ew. He told me I would like you to call me daddy. I'm going to actually I almost just threw up there. And it was either pretend to be a little girl or my little girl, she tells the BBC. Clara says she was so naive and vulnerable at that age and had no sense of how normal this kind of behavior was in an adult relationship. It was only as time went on that I realized more and more how scary that really was, she says. And that's also like when we think of teenagers, we think of people who aren't good at like sensing fear, you know, especially if you grew up in an unstable environment. You have even less of an alarm that goes off when fear is around, because maybe fear is all you've ever known. So that feels normal to you. An associate of Leto's in his 40s had approached her on the musician's behalf and got her phone number, she says, while backstage at a 30 Seconds to Mars gig in 2006. Clara says she remembers having a conversation about the age of consent in California with Leto because her father worked in law enforcement at the time. Leto, just kind of shrugged it off like it wasn't a huge concern for him, she says. Yeah, I mean, I guess rule of thumb is if you have to have a conversation with the guy you're about to fuck about the age of consent in the state you're in, it's probably going to be a no from me, dog. They went back to Leto's house, she says, and had sex while her friend waited in another room. Oh my God, if that's not teenage girl life, I don't know what is. But only the guy should, also be a teenager. It was the first of 3 or 4 visits to Leto's home, according to Clara. If an adult has sex with someone below the age of consent in California, it can constitute the criminal offense of statutory rape and lead to prison time. There is no well-adjusted man in his 30s who's going to look at a teenager and think she would be a great partner, says Clara. Clara's funny. Another woman tells the BBC her encounter with the star at a music festival when she was 14 stopped her from going to concerts altogether. Taylor says she met Leto with her mother in 2005 after watching 30 Seconds to Mars perform. The band had offered to meet fans and sign autographs, and the teenager held out the t-shirt she was wearing for Leto to sign, maybe on an arm or across her stomach, she explains. Instead, he chose to sign my shirt across my breasts, and he told me, "You have a nice rack," Taylor tells the documentary. 14-year-old, okay? He was asking his bodyguard to go ahead and take me backstage. He didn't even ask me if I wanted to go, she continues. Like, I could believe if you're looking into an audience that you think a 17-year-old is 18, 19, even 20. I cannot believe that you think a 14-year-old is 18. Especially back in those days before 14-year-olds were doing, Sephora level skincare regimens on TikTok. Because 14-year-olds back in my day really looked 14.
Where are the dads?
Where's just like, where's
Dad,
anyone?
if a security guard tries to take my daughter backstage anywhere before she says the words, I'm just gonna start swinging.
Yeah, but Mike, when we talk about where are the dads, I mean, do you remember the R. Kelly documentary? Like, you know, it was under the pretense of I'm going to make your baby girl a star, but dads were handing over their daughters to R. Kelly. Same with the Will Smith thing. That was like dads were literally, you know, the story goes, and this was like somewhat well documented. I'm not like just making this up, but like the story was that like dads, I think this was in some kind of like a talking head MTV, you know, documentary or something, that dads were like bringing their daughters to Will Smith's hotel room.
If that makes sense.
That makes sense?
No, it's like I don't know. The whole thing is honestly
fame is powerful, and I think we forget that men, like non-famous men, also are infatuated with famous men. That's how people like the Tate brothers exist. Clavicular, like that's how these people exist. Like I've seen so many, you know, think of even like male comedians. How many non-famous men have we seen fanboy over male comedians who we know who aren't even that famous? And then think of someone of the stature of Jared Leto, who's like really famous, like a movie star. It would have been very obvious she was a teenager, she says, explaining that she was very short and wore braces on her teeth at the time. Oof. Taylor says her mother witnessed what happened and confronted Leto. He looked at her and said, "It's still a nice rack. He just did not care," Taylor says. So it seems like he has obviously all these stories, you know, have like the thing that's like he said a perverted thing to a teen and then he doubled down on the perverted thing. You know, a real pattern. All these stories match up. The encounter really altered my life. There was nothing I could do about what happened to me. Etta, not her real name, is one of the 5 women who tell the BBC they received strange and often very sexual phone calls from Leto. 4 of them were teenagers at the time. 16-year-old Etta met Leto when she walked into a modeling agency in Los Angeles with her mother in 2014. She says the star took an interest in the teenager's ambition to be a model. You know, because, you know, adult men, they're just always really invested in the dreams of young women, especially ones not related to them, according to Etta, and asked for her email address to invite them both to his Oscar party. He did email me, and then very quickly it turns into this sexual thing on the phone, she tells the documentary. Leto knew she was 16 and asked her questions such as, "Are you a virgin? Do you have any kinks?" Like, I don't even think I knew what a fucking kink was when I was 16. And other more explicit questions, she recalls. He did at least once mention him and I having sex at some point. Etta remembers feeling nervous, anxious, and uncomfortable. Bless you, Alfred. But says she had a hard time putting up boundaries at that age and saying no. She says Leto asked if he could pass her number to a friend of his, making it sound like the friend could be a good contact for her career, and she agreed. Then, using our ambition against us yet again, then that friend who she knew as Christian would call a lot and ask her to shoot porn, saying it did not matter if she was underage, says Etta. Both Christian and Leto would ask similar explicit questions, she says, adding that she would not be surprised if they were the same person. Oh my God, imagine it's just Jared doing a voice. "Hello, this is Christian. I'm calling about the pornography that I want you to shoot." What a fucking wow.
If not, though, he is directly connecting somebody who ostensibly would make CP to children. That is
trafficking.
That's trafficking.
Yeah. 2 more of the 5 women who allege they received similar phone calls from Leto said that they were also called by other men around the same time. Like Etta, they also believe the men could have been Leto playing characters. I mean, this is, for this to be at the end of the article, this to me is the most interesting part of the article. "Hello, it's me, Jared. Hello, I'm Christian. Hello, I'm Tommy." They're all, I can only, that's the only accent I can do. Etta says
he's gonna have to break out scripts he's gotten over the years to be like, no, I was doing character work. Doing character work.
My God. Like, that's just even fucking creepier than this already really creepy story. I mean, beyond creepy, just crimes. Etta says she got a call from Leto in 2016 who told her his lawyer wanted to send her an NDA. The lawyer had been concerned about his relationships with women, he said. Yeah, but and it's of course it's like, you know, you're a lawyer. Why do anything that actually would protect the victims of the crime? You got to just protect your client who's giving you 5%. Etta says Leto chuckled at that as if it were funny. She did not sign the NDA, which the BBC has seen alongside corresponding texts and email exchanges. The story has been updated to include a statement issued by Jared Leto Media. Where's the statement from them? I don't see any attached statement. Where would that be? Not that I even give a shit. I guess it was the little blurb where it says, I have categorically not done this. I guess I thought it would be like an add-on statement, but it's in the actual body of the article. All right. So that is that. And then I just as a little palate cleanser before we just close up with like, you know, maybe one or two girls' stories. Did you hear Boy George's new song, Michael?
I couldn't sit through all of it, but the parts I did hear.
Okay, can we, like how much can we play without getting in trouble? Can we play like are we allowed to play like even 10 seconds of the song?
I don't. I mean, look, the stream is still going, and we played a couple seconds of that other song. So I say we give it a shot. And
wait, does it stop the stream immediately if you're live streaming and you get?
No, but it will tell me that I'm like flagged in one way or another.
Okay.
And it's not doing that.
Because I mean, isn't there like a fair use?
Yeah, if we're reacting to it.
Can I react to it?
All right. Yeah. So Corinne Fisher reacts to. Give me 1 second. Let me bring this right.
And this, you know, so obviously Boy George, like legendary singer. I myself have seen him in concert. He was the lead singer of the famous 1980s band Culture Club. You know, kind of, you know, someone who really played with gender identity, you know, progressive in so many ways. So I was kind of like, I just wasn't expecting this from him, but this is his song called We Will Dance Again. And it is about the genocide in Gaza, but he doesn't think it's a genocide. So he's singing about that a little bit.
Okay. I mean,
you never heard the beginning?
It feels very islandy.
Yeah.
Whoa. How is the first line?
Yeah.
When you're attacked, it's what the army's for.
Yeah. Okay.
Does it get ugly? You bet it does.
So it's a little like on the nose.
And I know you wanna kill.
And also, why is it reggaeton?
Every last one of us.
So the most successful Israeli artist, crossover artist of all time is Matisyahu.
Right.
Like, this is Boy George does Matisyahu.
But also, Boy George isn't Jewish. Did you know that?
I mean, he's a proud Zionist, clearly.
For the crime of dancing, you condemn the Jews with selective memory. Musicians holding flags. Okay.
Well,
like sheep.
Did we get the part where he works in the lyric about rape?
Yes.
Okay, we did.
Back?
No, it's
because it's in the chorus. So it's gonna come back around. It's just if you don't talk over it.
Okay, yeah. So I just like he's worked in rape and genocide into the body of the lyrics, and then somehow it's the chorus is just "We Will Dance Again," which feels too light for the content of the meat of the song. All right, we can take this off. But I just really wanted you guys to get, and I did. Don't worry, I got the lyrics genius. I got the lyrics genius lyrics. So I can read them to you in case you miss anything. You know, as Mike pointed out, he comes in hot. Boy George comes in hot. He says, You say genocide, I say war. It's almost kind of like his version of, you know, that old timey song, you say tomato, I say tomato, 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 tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. You ever hear that song, Mike?
Oh yeah. It's a good classic jingle.
Well, it's not a jingle. It's a real song. It's like, wait, who sings tomato song? Who sings that? So like, I mean, the most famous version is by Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong, but it was written by George and Ira Gershwin for the 1937 film Shall We Dance? So it's just, it's just about like, we're different and it's quirky and opposites attract. So this is kind of, to me, Boy George's version of that. And he's coming in hot. You say genocide, I say war. Okay. When you're attacked, that's what the army's for. Like, besides just it being, number one, the melody's way too light for what we're talking about. Number two, it's just like, usually when you're writing like a political song, again, you're usually not so on the nose. Maybe we're going to use a metaphor, some kind of allegory. He's just going straight into it. I'm surprised he didn't rhyme Netanyahu in here, quite frankly. I'm surprised AIPAC wasn't brought into the conversation at one point. Like at the end, he does talk in Hebrew though. So maybe I don't speak Hebrew. So maybe at the end he says donate to AIPAC in Hebrew. I'm not really sure. Yeah. Okay. So it says, you say genocide, I say war. When you're attacked, that's what the army's for. Does it get ugly? You bet it does. That might be that's a contender for favorite, but also worst line in the thing. Does it get ugly? You bet it does. When I know you want to kill every last one of us, you never mention October 7th, young girls raped against trees, murdered brutally for the crime of dancing. You condemn the Jews, the selective memory, musicians holding flags, mouthing like sheep, propaganda fueled by the internet feels so weak. But trust me, we will dance again. We will dance again. We will dance again, and there will be no war. But if you're ever confused, I stand with the Jews. I don't feel brave. I just need to behave like a human. But trust me, we will dance again. And it goes on and on, but no real new thoughts after that. And again, the outro's in Hebrew, which I don't. Oh wait, I guess I could just run this through a translator and see what this says. All right. Oop. Hebrew to English. Oh, it's at the end. It's translates to, you say genocide, I say war when they come to kill you. Okay, well, he just wanted to really double down on that part at the end in Hebrew. So that was fun, a little Easter egg for everyone.
Well, I think it's like it doesn't count unless you can say it in Hebrew too. It's like, come on, man, you're cosplaying until you read it back to me in Yiddish.
I get just like I don't. The thing is, it's like, thanks for trying to help, but this actually just made things so much worse, Boy George. Like this is not just this is not what the Jews needed. And also, again, when we're talking about like conflation, it's just like even the use of just like Jews, it's like, no, this song is about how you stand with Israel, and you saying I stand with the Jews is like actually super problematic and making this so much more confusing and problematic than it needs to be when it's already quite a big problem, as genocides tend to be. So yeah, that's just a little palate cleanser that I knew I would have to discuss with Mike. The Guardian did write an article about it, but I don't know that there's really anything more that needs to be said on the matter. But it was written up. That of course just popped up on my Instagram, and I said, no, absolutely not. All right, moving on to a quick could be worse. This one I really feel like we needed to point out. President of Nicaragua, Daniel Ortega, he said this just in, elections, we're not doing them anymore. He said, I think we're good on elections. And I mean, the best thing about this article is, I mean, it's a picture from 2018 that they're using of him and his wife, but the outfit that she is wearing is exactly what I want to see a president's wife wearing. Move over, Melania, because Vice President Rosario Murillo is in town. And get this. So he's the president, his wife is the vice president. Oops.
Hey,
how'd that happen?
If anything happens to me.
Don't worry, my wife's got it. What the fuck is she wearing?
That's also arguably the best excuse ever for cheating.
Yeah.
So like, hey, you're the vice president, I'm the president. If they bomb us, they can't get us both. You got to sleep somewhere else tonight.
Oh my God. Wow. That was that. What a journey we just went on with your brain, Mike. Nicaragua's president Daniel Ortega said his country won't be holding elections anytime soon, a statement underscoring the strongman's efforts to extend his nearly 20-year rule and dashing hopes by the opposition that he might heed their demands for a democratic vote. The announcement effectively canceled Nicaragua's next elections, originally scheduled for November 2027. And I do think it's important that we read this here because, let's laugh while we can until this happens to us, until Donald Trump makes this announcement. After the government-controlled Congress voted in January 2025 to extend the 5-year presidential term by 1 year, Ortega spoke on Sunday at the anniversary of the Sandinista revolution that toppled the Somoza dictatorship in 1979 and first brought him to power. He returned to the presidency in 2007 and has since rewritten the Constitution, crushed political opposition. I mean, again, it's very Trumpian, and solidified his control over virtually all branches of the Nicaraguan government. Since mass protests in 2018, which led to a bloody government crackdown that killed hundreds, Ortega and his wife and co-president Rosario Murillo have been holding on to power. Ortega declared himself the winner of the 2021 election, a vote widely viewed as illegitimate by the international community, after jailing all the candidates who could have possibly beaten him. And again, this is like very on the nose way to do it, but certainly when we talk about retribution, or things like that, obviously Trump doesn't have the ability to just immediately throw people in jail the way these other countries might, but he certainly is, subpoenaing people and, lawsuits against people, things like that. So in his own way, kind of doing very similar actions. The U.S. does not recognize Ortega's presidency. It doesn't recognize it, but it's taking notes on it. There won't be any more elections, Ortega said in a speech, railing on his longtime adversary, the United States. Parties put in place by the Yankees, put in place by the Somoza regime coming back to power. That story is over. Never, 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 he said of any elections. Opponents and rights groups said the Sunday announcement represents an escalation as Ortega further solidifies his grip on Nicaragua. And there's a little bit more, but I think just that's the core of the story that we needed to get to. All right, we're going to close out the show with just a couple of thoughts about all right, here, sorry, I'm just burping up Diet Dr. Pepper. Excuse me. All right. The Nolan Wells, update again. I'm just continuing on this every week. We are in good hands because Nancy Grace is still on it. But there was there was this audio that TMZ had released that was circulating, but that they had basically I think we all heard the one friend calling the boating, membership line or whatever, saying that their boat is sinking. But as many people pointed out, on the phone, he's not actually panicking, which is weird because if your boat is sinking, you would think that you would be a little bit more panicked. That being said, he's also a teenage boy, and how sometimes they just kind of speak no matter what's happening in a very monotone voice. So I don't know that necessarily means anything specifically. But then, TMZ and some other outlets toyed with the audio in the back, and apparently they were saying that you could hear the kids in the background being he's dead. Nolan's dead. Oh my God, no, Nolan's dead. And I heard it, and you could hear it in his versions, but then other outlets are saying that like that audio is illegitimate. An expert listened to it and said that it was like not that was not real audio. Again, this story is so out of hand because it's such an online story, again, because it was so at first just like so dismissed by Mississippi, Mississippi government. So that's the problem now, because the story just lives online, and I've seen so much misinformation of it, so many false claims, so much hearsay. But News Nation, and again, how trustworthy is News Nation? This, as of today, or the past couple of days, the news story is kind of like witnesses are claiming that Nolan Wells was drinking heavily before death. This is not the only place that I've seen it. That's just kind of had the most cohesive article about it. According to a preliminary document obtained by ABC News from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, witnesses told investigators they saw Wells consuming a large quantity of alcohol while partying with his friends. The email was sent July 5th and circulated to search crews a day after Wells was reported missing. And again, the drinking, it's like, okay, I mean, yeah, it's a bunch of older teenagers on the 4th of July on a boat. Like, I'm sure they were all drinking. Like, again, this to me is not like shocking. And it's also not like, I guess they're trying to point to more like it could be an accident. Like he was drunk, he fell, or he got out to swim and drowned or something like this. Wells traveled to the island for a party, Horn Island, with friends, but reportedly stayed behind while they left because of boat trouble, saying he would get home another way. His friends have publicly said he was drinking with them while on the island. Traciston, what the fuck name is this? Traciston Shepherd, I don't ever heard it. Okay. Traciston Shepherd, I'll say. A friend of Wells has publicly spoken about the last time he saw Wells. He didn't travel with Wells to the party, but was part of a large group on the island. And he said he spent most of the day with them. The expert disputes TMZ's enhanced audio claims. The MDMR's document cites Wells was also in the company of an unknown female who I think her name is like Katie. She's since been her identity has finally gone public. That woman here you go. That woman has been identified as Katie McCormick. However, her sister disputes the report, saying the pair spoke only very briefly and that the family has cooperated with investigators. There were 60 witnesses that were interviewed after Nolan's death. Authorities have suggested Wells's death was an accidental drowning, but the autopsy reports are still pending. It is saying that they did call about this broken down boat, but it's like that background audio that's still in question. So again, like just kind of going over, but there's just not really a ton of we're still kind of waiting on like a more conclusive autopsy toxicology report, I think is what we're really waiting on. But I just like to touch on it every week because it's something that I don't want to go away. And then I also just wanted to, again, this is a very long article, but just, because Nolan Wells's story is getting so much attention, I also just wanted to quickly bring your attention to two other mysterious deaths of young Black people in America, because this is like becoming like eerily common. And again, like every story doesn't get the amount of attention that Nolan's has got. This is from unionbulletin.com, which is like a local outlet, but from where this woman is from, Charlotte, North Carolina. This girl, not woman. It says a Black and I found out about this story online, like on a social media, like justice Instagram sites, and this was like one of the only articles that I saw actually covering this as a real story. But it's a Black teen found hanged near Charlotte Church was a suicide, police say. Questions linger. It is a saying in the Black community, Black people don't hang themselves from trees. And that's just something that I keep in my heart and my mind when I hear stories like this. But this is a guy was walking his dog through his North Charlotte neighborhood. And like Charlotte, North Carolina is like, I've been there many times. I dated someone who lived there for quite some time. So I've been to Charlotte a lot of times in the past couple of years. And it's like a very progressive neighborhood seemingly, or not a city seemingly. But yeah, he found a girl hanging by a tree in a churchyard. And this was 16-year-old Juliana Nitta, who had been missing for several days. This was on Friday afternoon that her body was found. By Monday, the medical examiner had already ruled her death as a suicide. And Charlotte Mecklenburg police closed the case 4 days later. And it just seemed like everyone's like, I think a lot of times when people commit suicide, their family is like, no, that doesn't seem like them. But this is different. Her age, kind of the logistics of the tree, it kind of, people are talking about like, yeah, it's like, I don't even know how she would have physically done this. I also heard that like I think I was reading in another thing that like whatever she was standing on, or whatever it was, stage that she was standing on, was something like very flimsy that would have gone out. And she used a ratchet strap. What is a ratchet strap even? What the hell is that? I have to look this up. Ratchet strap. I don't even know what that is. Something you get it's like one of those. What is it used
like
for?
The crank. It's the kind of thing you
like
use
a fabric belt.
Yeah, it's like what you like weigh something down with on a truck, right? Like if you like a big belt around and you like crank the lever to tighten it. Okay, got it. Which is also like what 16-year-old girl is like, not that you don't have access to it, but it's like, is this a Home Depot kind of thing? I don't know that they're not, but yeah, I mean they have them at Home Depot, they have them at a hardware store. Her dad might have worked in some kind of
or it could just be a local person who murdered her. But I don't know. Again, this was just something that like it certainly could have been she committed suicide, but it was closed way too fast. And again, I just really like to go along with the Black community's thoughts, like Black people don't hang themselves from trees. And so I just wanted to point this out,
especially in a church, right?
No, that's
super disrespectful.
Okay, well, I don't know that that's the main thing that we're talking about now, but
no, I'm saying it does seem like that's an audacious way to go.
Or maybe or I guess I would think of it as like if you did kill yourself near a church, that's like, maybe God, please have mercy on my soul. That's more what I was thinking. But I just do want to put a pin in this because I really haven't seen anything about this anywhere, and this certainly seems sus to me. And then this other one,
like, there is a certain sense of it where it's like your parents are going to go to this place for some kind of solace after your passing, and every time they walk through the doors of that church, they're going to have to see the place where their daughter was found. You know what I mean?
But when you're in the mental state, if you are in the mental state of killing yourself, you're usually kind of not thinking things through that clearly, from my understanding, Mike.
All right, fair enough. I don't know. I'm just saying this all points more towards what you're saying, where it's like this might be a true crime thing. Someone should maybe have looked into this for more than 4 days.
Oh no, and well, that's why I'm highlighting it, because I mean, I do feel like the internet is doing a good job of keeping the Nolan Wells case alive, and I'm actually like pleasantly surprised by that. But this this girl is not getting the same amount of attention, and I think in part because like we can only kind of as a society handle one story like this at a time. So that's why I wanted to really spotlight her. Sounds weird, but and then this other story that kind of goes along with Nolan Wells and Juliana, although there are not the same questions involved, but this is a more, I would say, classic American story. This is from People magazine. Again, really knocking it out of the park this week. But 17-year-old fatally shot by police officers responding to report of armed suspect had a water bottle in his waistband, not a gun. And so this is in fucking Austin, Texas. Again, yes, Texas, but Austin is, Austin is not the same as the rest of Texas, although maybe these days it is. I don't know. Someone called and this is the quote, the direct quote. Someone called and said, there seems to be a kid and it looks like he has a gun. I'm not sure, but he keeps messing with his waistband. I see something in his hands. It looks like a firearm, but I'm not sure, the caller said. This is the 911 audio. It's also like, if you're not near someone and they're fiddling with their pants and you just, it's like, why are we calling the cops to begin with? Like, what? Like, is he, unless he's threatening you, okay. Isn't Texas a right to carry state? Like,
yeah, it would be pretty normal for someone to have a gun.
Yeah, I mean,
it
I guess
would be normal for someone to have a gun out. It would be abnormal for someone to have a gun in their waistband, flashing it in a, you know.
No, he wasn't flashing it. He was like fiddling with it, you know.
Fiddling with it. Okay, yeah.
But he wasn't flashing it because he couldn't flash it because it was a water bottle, not a gun.
Yeah, it's a water bottle. Yeah, but I'm saying like it seems like the way the caller is describing it, it's like it makes it seem like he's walking around trying to like intimidate people with a water bottle instead of.
That's not how I read it at all. And I mean, unless you're in imminent danger, like we just need to not be calling fucking the cops on teenager. Like, I don't know. And I guess maybe it was also because it was late because it says he was pronounced dead at 4:25 a.m. So I guess it's late, but it's also like, well, then who are you and why are you out late in the street? So who are like, maybe I'll call the cops on you. Like
who's calling the cop? Yeah, it's like, that's a call you made to the cops at 3 a.m.
Yeah, it's like fucking go home. And that says police later determined that the 911 call was made from the 17-year-old's phone. And Davis said investigators believe the teen was the caller. Davis said those findings led investigators to believe the shooting was potentially a suicide by police, which seems like, huh? The police, let's see. Yeah, let's see. When officers arrived at the park, they approached a person who matched the caller's description. Officers attempted to de-escalate the encounter by directing the person to keep his hands up. Davis said the person then very quickly, very suddenly lifted his sweatshirt with one hand and reached into his waistband with the other hand. So I guess maybe, I mean, that's sad.
Yeah, I mean, if he's the one who made the call,
sure,
that does sound like the definition of suicide.
Sure, but my question is, did he actually make the call? Because sounds like a kind of a lie that a police officer would make up too.
Of course, it's like we got to see the body cam footage because it's like that tells you everything you need to know. If he threw up his shirt and reached for like menacingly for something, it's like, oh, that is you trying to draw their fire to a water bottle. You know what I mean?
Well, here it looks like they did link body camera footage. This is like a late add-on, so I didn't watch this body camera footage yet. Okay, so wait, can we watch this body cam? You see the link in here, right, where it says police body camera footage. It's like, so it's under the paragraph that says Davis said the person then very quickly, very suddenly lifted his sweatshirt with one
police
hand.
Body camera footage released. Oh my goodness! All right, yeah. I mean, this is
because again, I added this one like right before we went on, so I didn't see the full thing of it.
Okay, well, what I'll argue is,
but it was being presented on this is why you need to read full articles. It was being presented online as that cops killing another teenager, but it's like, right. Okay, well, I guess we're about to find out.
Well, I don't know because I haven't seen it, obviously, but I'm gonna say because this video is hosted on YouTube, it should be fair for us to play it. No.
Oh, I mean, also body cam footage. How does that? I don't think that knocks you, does it?
All right, let's do it.
This doesn't look like this is like I think body cam footage. I thought would be fine.
All right, so
I mean, I can talk through it if you want it to be like a reaction. I'm not trying to be, disrespectful to this person by this. Okay, so cops getting out of the car, responding to the call.
Hey, keep your hands up.
Okay.
What's going on?
It looks like a play. Is this a playground?
Right?
Looks like it.
You doing all right?
Okay.
Hey, keep your hands up.
Okay. I mean, that happens so fast.
Hey, check your.
What the? I mean.
Hey, keep your hands up.
What?
What's going on, bro? You all right? You doing all right? You doing all right? Hey, keep your hands up.
Okay, so what? So he definitely does swiftly lift his sweatshirt up and go for his waistband. That being said, there's gotta be a better way than like 2 to 3 cops as soon as you lift your sweatshirt, especially when it's a teenager at a park in the middle of the night by themselves, just absolutely obliterating your body with bullets. It just seems like there's gotta be a better approach here.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. You'd like to see maybe some kind of a non-lethal, a taser, but it's like there are also those videos of like guys getting tased with 50,000 volts and then like still reaching for a knife or a gun, and it's like I don't know, man. The cops got a call that someone's got a gun there, possibly, and
It's also like it's the middle of the night and he's alone at the park. Okay, and it's a right to carry state. All right, just everyone go inside. Like there was no one else around.
That's
Who
fair.
cares?
So I did not catch that part of the article. Like, where was it? Because it looked like that it was a playground, but it also looked like that playground might have been attached to like an apartment complex or some kind.
Even still, it's kind of like I don't know, unless he's by my window. I mean, I'm just like I've lived in places where people had guns, and I'm like, as long as you're not pointing it at me, oh, okay, like or someone else.
So that also, like, same, honestly, and it does seem like a kind of mind your business state, also. So it's like it would kind of make sense if he was the one who made the call, and then also like clearly heard the commands of keep your hands up and instead decided to act shifty and then turn to the cops and lift his shirt up quickly and grab for something. It's like I don't know what you want the cops to believe in that, especially if he was the one who made the call.
I know. It kind of like the way he was pacing, it kind of makes me feel like he was like under some kind of a like drunk or something, kind of like going down a hill, and maybe he was like, maybe I'll just like end it all, but it seems like something that we approached with some kind of a de-escalation. This didn't need to be the case, especially just like he's so young. I don't know, so not a different kind of story than these other stories, but still just like a story of like when you see how swiftly all of this goes down, and it's like I'm watching on a video. And I wonder what like the visual clarity is if I'm approaching the scene as a police officer, I mean,
there is just a part of me that's like, I as much of an anti-authoritarian person as I am, like anytime I've gotten a direction from a cop, it's always been like, you have guns. Like
even when you were 17 though, I mean, I don't know.
No, for sure. I mean, it's like we're like running from cops, maybe from like a party where I was drinking underage. Sure. But like, I don't know. Anytime a cop had a gun drawn on me, and it has happened a couple of times, I have listened to every word they said.
I know. Yeah, it's tough. It just like when I'm watching that, I go, that just to me goes, it just happens so fast. You're like, how could anyone possibly be making a good decision in that time period?
It is crazy. We trust our greatest warriors with associate's degrees to like, hey man, you're going to make $60K a year and decide life and death calls for teenagers all across America.
100%. I am not super pro police, but I absolutely wanted to give them more money and better training so that we could get higher quality individuals who like really look at it as a career, not just a way to get money in the bank. Like a way to to look at it as a job of serving the community. All right. And then the last thing that we'll wrap up with today, I don't have time. The Fauci story is just too big unless you have any thoughts on it. I haven't had time to extensively go through his diaries, his secret diaries, but I know you are obsessed with Fauci if you have any thoughts on that book, but I'm going to end on Elon Musk otherwise.
Just that I was right, and
no, well, more than that, a little bit more. So, I mean, I know that a lot of the diary entries are kind of like about the origin of COVID, what was going on. I also saw something from like White Coat Waste Project that was trying to say that the diary also reveals that in some animal welfare situations that Barack Obama and and Anthony Fauci were like in cahoots about silencing whistleblowers and the animal cruelty somehow. I'm sure that's not the part of the diary entries that you were honing in on, though.
No, it was a lot of the like, look at me, I'm actually the most famous guy in the whole world.
I did see that. I thought that was interesting. One of the headlines was kind of like a lot of his diary was about his own like relationship with his newfound fame, and like I saw that headline and I go, that's never a good sign. Yeah, that's not really what you want the guy creating the vaccine to be thinking about. Yeah, or he didn't create the vaccine, but yeah.
We just he might have created the disease though.
Oh boy.
I don't know. I listen. My mind was made up on this guy.
We know. That's why I said, oh man, but Mike's birthday came again in 2026.
It's like, honestly, outside of the more humiliating, this dude was the biggest narcissist in the whole wide world. Like the fact that you would write this to anywhere is crazy to me. So, yeah.
Dear diary.
Nothing really changed in my opinion of him that much. It was just kind of fun for it to come to light, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, the GOP certainly feels the same way about him that you do. All right. I mean, I guess I feel like just I guess maybe he was like, I'm becoming really famous. Maybe I should keep a diary now. We all saw what happened to Anne Frank. Let's get it in there. All right, and the last article is from Associated Press.
Is there? I want to know if there's a diary entry about him getting pardoned for any crimes he may have committed. Like, what are his actual internal monologue thoughts about? Like, I got a pass from the president for any crime I've ever committed. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, any smart person knows we can't. Like, if there's something that you really don't want people to know, you can't even write it in your diary. Elon Musk's, this is from Associated Press, Elon Musk's AI sues Minnesota over its first in the nation law banning nudification technology. This is kind of like goes hand in hand for those of you who listen to GWF about the with the Creep Act episode we had with Norma Buster and the other lawyer's name is slipping my mind, but that episode and about like revenge porn and stuff like that, or they don't like to call it revenge porn. There's another word that I have absolutely forgotten that is more kind. Elon Musk's company XAI has sued Minnesota over the state's first in the nation law that bans nudification technology on websites and apps, potentially providing a test for how far states can go in constitutionally regulating the use of artificial intelligence. Musk's company sued Monday in federal court days before the law is set to take effect Saturday and make Minnesota the first state to try to outlaw the increasingly proliferating technology that lets people use AI to create fake nude images of real people. The law was signed in May. In the 38-page lawsuit, XAI,
that's interesting because I've only seen this pitched, to me at least, as like the app that lets you make nude images that would be illegal otherwise. You know what I mean? Like not about making it of any person, like a celebrity or somebody that you know or anything like that, but like specifically about like the protecting the children thing. Is how this has been pitched across my
okay. In the 38-page lawsuit, XAI, whose AI model chatbot and image generator Grok is available on the social media platform known as X, formerly Twitter, and elsewhere, said it does not contest the state's interest in banning the distribution of AI-generated nude images of real people without their consent. But it said Minnesota's law extends far beyond that goal, banning many constitutionally protected images and video and subjecting the company to a penalty of $500,000 per violation. The lawsuit argues that there is no safe harbor provision for companies that make good faith efforts to prevent such images from being created by users. So I mean, it's obviously like, they don't want the money guys to be taking any of the blow and then therefore be afraid to use the technology if it's going to cost them $500,000 a pop, and that it covers faith efforts to prevent such images from being created by users. And we know that good faith efforts are always something that companies really make good on, and that it covers images that were consented to by the depicted person or even created by that person. It also says the law's definition of intimate part is overly broad, covering body parts that are routinely displayed in public. In a statement, Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison said his office had not been served with the lawsuit yet or seen it. Because that's the thing about this lawsuit. I'm like, it definitely looks bad on paper, but like when you're actually going through the lawsuit, you're like, okay, well, I can understand why someone would sue. And it's not like because they want everyone to be able to have like a fake nude. It's just because it's like the language is too broad, which we see in a lot of legislation that's introduced. But I know that using AI to generate nude images of people against their will is appalling. There are plenty of worthy debates to have about AI policy. This is not one of them. AI nudification robs the target of their dignity and can cause immense harm on an emotional, personal, and professional level, Ellison said, which 100% true. State laws over election deepfakes have had mixed results in courts. California's law was blocked over First Amendment speech protections. Minnesota's law has thus far survived a 2025 court challenge by Musk's company. The law is distinct from state and federal laws that outlaw deep fakes, AI-generated sexually explicit images of people without their consent. Those laws typically penalize the people who use the tools to make these images, not the makers of the tools themselves. The federal Take It Down Act, passed last year, also requires websites and apps to implement a process to remove those images. Texas last year took on nudification in a slightly different way. It made a website or app owner liable to civil damages from a person depicted in a nudified image and potentially criminal penalties if the website or app owner knew the person hadn't given consent to its creation or fails to take it down promptly when told about it. In the lawsuit, XAI said the terms of service for using Grok prohibit using it for any illegal, harmful, or abusive activities that violate someone's privacy, including altering their image to nudify them or depict them in a sexually explicit image. It's like, okay, these people haven't been on Twitter in, I don't know, the last week. It said it enforces those rules against violators through accounts, suspensions, or terminations, and by reporting suspected child sexual abuse content. XAI also said earlier this year that it has a zero tolerance policy for any forms of child sexual exploitation, non-consensual nudity, and unwanted sexual content. Oh, well, that's great. That's good policy to have. After a global backlash over sexualized images of women and children, Grok said in January it will geo-block content if it violates laws in a particular place, preventing people from editing photos of real people and revealing clothing in places where that is illegal. Grok's spicy mode had allowed users to create explicit content, leading to a backlash from governments worldwide. We have implemented technological measures to prevent the Grok account from allowing the editing of images of real people and revealing clothing such as bikinis. That's been done to me for sure. Underwear and other revealing attire. And I knew it was AI because I said, I don't look that good in a bikini. XI said in a January statement. So I mean, I think these are just, these are lawsuits that we're going to continue seeing as technology advances, and as with any technology advances, nothing that we can do to stop it. A lot of it will be positive, but people will always find a way to do sexually explicit things with technology. I mean, that's just literally what is always going to happen. Doesn't make it okay, but hopefully that our elected officials and legislators can keep up with laws to protect us, of course, women and children, primarily against those things. And that is our show. What a full show. I hope you guys learned a lot about postpartum psychosis today, and a lot about Jared Leto's penchant for teen girls. Wow, fun. As a reminder, make sure to get those tickets to my Glasgow show on the 14th of August. And of course, my gas show in Los Angeles at the Comedy Store on October 25th. All those ticket links are available in the Linktree link in my bio everywhere. But, easiest, I think, on Instagram at Philanthropy Gal. You can also follow Without a Country at Without a Country Podcast on Instagram. And please, no matter how you ingest the show, please hit subscribe on our YouTube. That is so helpful to subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you are fiscally able, it means a lot when you guys can support the show financially. You get a free bonus news story every single week for as little as $6 a month. You can join my Patreon at patreon.com/Without a Country. And Mike, where can the people find you and support you outside of the show?
Well, I think the biggest thing I got coming up is going to be on August the 7th. The Armored League is making our debut at the Webster in Connecticut. Going to be a very fun time up there. Second time ever doing a show in the state of Connecticut. About an hour from Mohegan Sun. So, yeah, we're going to go gambling on Thursday and then right over to right over there on Friday. Going to be a good time. Get tickets at thearmoredleague.com.
Guys, thank you so much. Thanks to Mike. Thanks to Crystal. Thanks to everyone for spending a couple hours of your evening with me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you listening to this show. And the truth is in there. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Running from the man, yeah, the madman's coming, yeah, the man's gunning for me tonight. I spent the last week running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive.